Welcome. This is the Modern Streamers League. We're back. It's been a year, but here we are, and we are proudly sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and Card Order for our May of 2020 Triplet Tournament. So what happened in 2019? Let's do a quick 30-second recap. Well, back in the past, we had a two-team tournament which had Team Fire and Team Ice. After 100 matches of Magic, Team Fire was on top, 51-49. That's just incredible. I just want to throw that out there. Oh, what is that? Oh, that is KO Diamonds handing me an MVP trophy for going 10-0. No big deal. I'm sure this won't be brought up later, like when he's commentating with me Thursday night. But that's 2019. Let's bring this up to 2020. Here we are. We have a different style tournament. This is a triple elimination triplet tournament. So each player is going to bring 3 deck lists, which are listed on our website, www.modernstreamersleague.com. Also, you can check those out. Those will be posted on the Twitch side and on the YouTube side as well, depending upon if you're watching this live or if you're in the future. The players we have are Archon, Aspiring Spike, Caleb Schur, Fluffy Wolf 2, Francisco Paluchek, Garrett Martin, Ghost Empire, Capolo, KO Diamonds, Capons, Saint Doom, Sodek MTG, Spider Space, Viral Drake, VizQuiz, and Yamakiller. Each player has 3 decks. When a deck loses, that deck is forever eliminated from the tournament, and we will be playing until there is only one player or one deck left in the entire tournament, and they will be the MSL 2020 champion. The bracket itself is listed on our website, but here it is for a quick little glance. We are going to play down the bracket every night, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, right at 8 p.m. Eastern Time until the entire tournament is done, which should be 4 weeks of time. Plenty of Modern Magic, plenty of action, and let's get going.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome back, everyone. I am joined by 2 absolutely amazing commentators. I am really stoked to be able to do this again. So we have Francisco and Drake. So Francisco, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Francisco, as you just said, and my last name is Polish, so I'm not going to ask anybody to try to pronounce it. I am a streamer. I've been streaming for a little bit over a year and a half now. Jeez, it's been a while. Right now, I'm doing it almost full time. So yeah, a lot of stuff coming up. I stream Modern. I actually call myself the last Modern streamer. It kind of started as a meme. Everybody started playing Pioneer when Pioneer became a thing, and then I was still stubbornly streaming Modern, so that's when the last one exactly. And now everybody's streaming Modern again. Before my time,
Either before your time or you were the pioneer to bring everyone back into Modern.
Oh, jeez.
Nice.
Oh, jeez.
This
the
is the
puns
content
are
I'm
going
here for.
to keep coming. Drake.
This is
The worst content. Truly the worst.
Drake,
So
a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a software developer by day, and I play a lot of Magic by night. I play on Team Nova, which is a team that was arranged to get its members into the SCG Players Championship, which we successfully did in 2019. So I mostly play on the SCG Tour. You can find tons of feature matches and SCG coverage on me because I'm so good at the game, I promise.
We'll find out. We will find out how good you are at this game.
There's a lot of matches you're gonna watch me play, and then other commentators are gonna tear apart my play. But for now, I'm gonna hold out that I'm okay at Magic. But
so you mostly do paper Magic. So how is transitioning to an online-only environment been for you?
Yeah, so I typically stream about a day a week. I'm not like as dedicated as Francisco is. Like I do it more as a hobby. Like I don't really have the time to commit to like do it full time, even though I'd love to. But transitioning to online only Magic has been very different for me, and I've found that I don't prefer it. I think most Magic players can speak to that they prefer paper Magic to online Magic, except for the true diehard Moto grinders who just truly love Moto.
There's something about holding a fully foiled out deck, which I hated foiled deck for a long time. Then I finally started foiling out Amulet, and I was like,
opened your eyes to how great it is. Just shiny cards.
You get to look at my future sight Teleria West just for 1 second as I flick it down to the table to grab a Summoner's Pack to kill you. Like, you get to see it for a second. You just get to see that there. You don't get that same experience in online. Plus, the MTGO Shuffler, I think, absolutely hates me because I'll scry a card to the bottom and somehow it'd be the exact same card on top.
The old Moto bug, huh? Yeah, it's not the same for me. Moto's not the same. I don't, not being face to face with people. It's been a very different experience for me. So honestly, I hate to say I've taken like a step back because I still play a fair bit of Magic. I'm usually playing at least a tournament a week. But I definitely feel that I've been playing less Magic since we've switched to this whole quarantine thing, and I'm excited to be back once SCG is in the clear to safely run tournaments again.
It'll be great when the world gets back to normal. Which
Agreed.
is a big reason why we're here. Give you guys something to do. Stay at home for as long as we need to get through this terrible start of 2020 together.
But the Streamers League's back. Come on, that's a great part.
Streamers League is back.
That's what we're here for.
In part because I can't work right now. So there we go. There are pros to this terrible existential crisis we all find ourselves in right now. So we actually have a great show for you guys tonight. We got 4 matches to start out the tournament bracket. Sodek against Ghost Empire, KO Diamonds against Spider Space, K-Ponce against Archon TV. We got a deck tech video also from Capolo. Andrea keeps telling me I keep
Polo.
It sounds the same to me. I'm sorry, Andrea. And then we have Capolo versus VizQuiz, Ryan. So we are reading the chat. What's up, the Royal Egg? A little bit behind on chat there, but definitely check out the emotes you get if you do subscribe, and all the subscribe money does go to charity. So check out these cool fire and ice emotes in the chat.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
So that's the show we have going for you tonight. I hope you guys have a great time. I do have a couple more questions before we jump into the match. Francisco.
Yes.
What have you done for Cinco de Mayo so far?
I streamed.
Wonderful.
Is that a good enough answer?
Did you get the 5-0 for Cinco de Mayo?
No, I did not. I streamed the Donation League in Standard.
Okay.
I did manage to make 5,000 mana in Standard, so that was cool.
That's kind of Cinco de Mayo on Arena, and Arena didn't crash. That's a good thing. That's a good sign.
Yeah, that's actually kind of incredible to be told. Like, truth be told.
Drake, what have you done so far today?
I worked. We had a bunch of scary meetings about the impact of coronavirus on our job this morning. So, I took a little half day, and then I guess I had chicken tortilla soup. Does that count? Is that Cinco de Mayo enough?
I guess. See,
it's not quite a margarita, but
we just have to go drink a Corona now. Oh wait.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Too soon. Maybe 2021. Maybe 2021. My wife grew up in New Mexico, so she made some fancy tacos and a margarita, and I definitely enjoyed that for my dinner.
Oh,
so
I'm very jealous. That sounds
margarita
incredible.
and actually good tacos is a fantastic combination.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So we will be coming at you with modern action in just a moment. Sodek up against Ghost Empire. To quickly reiterate the way this format works is those players each have 3 deck lists. They don't know what deck they're going to play against. Like, they get to pick which deck they secretly pick, and then they do the match, and then the loser's deck is completely eliminated from the tournament. So we're playing one of Sodek's 3 deck lists. He picks Dredger Amulet up against Ghost Empire, who's got 3 different decks. So we'll see what they play and how this turns out in just a minute.
All right.
Let's go, baby.
We are watching from the perspective of Ghost Empire. Looks like he's playing a Gigantha deck.
Yeah, I think that's 5-color Niv, if I'm not mistaken.
5-color Niv. Yeah. We don't actually know the matchup before it starts because the players don't reveal their deck lists or anything to each other. And so actually each player figures out, even despite the tournament being open deck lists where everyone can see everyone else's pool of deck lists, you don't know what you're actually playing against until you figure it out in mid-match. Which with companions does actually you kind of show your hand a little earlier than you would other times because if you only have one Gigantha deck, right, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, Ghost Empire's on 5-color Niv.
Yeah, but by that time you already chose your deck, so it doesn't really impact your your decision, really.
It might impact your hand keep, though. It could still impact your hand keep.
That's fair. I've been telling my opponents what deck I'm choosing before we actually start, so I don't know if that's how everybody else is doing.
No, that's not what Michael told us to do.
Whoops. So. Never mind. Don't worry about it.
This is actually kind of an interesting match. Ghost Empire won SCG Vegas with the team of Cyrus Cormagill and I believe Jonathan Zhang. And he's playing against Sodek, who is a known Dredge advocate, Dredge enthusiast. He plays Dredge all the time, even when people are talking about, it's a dead deck, whatever. Sodek still shows up, crushes people with Dredge. Ghost Empire,
didn't he actually just win a challenge or got second in a challenge a week ago or something?
It's literally a few weeks ago. I mean, that's every week for Sodek. He's just always making deep runs with Dredge. But at SCG Vegas, Jonathan Zhang, their modern seat, was actually playing Sodek 75, if I remember correctly, and with his sideboard notes, he wrote a whole article about it afterwards, shouting out Sodek's work on Dredge. So it's kind of cool that Ghost Empire had his modern teammate do well because of Sodek, and you can see him squaring off against the Dredge legend now.
Nice.
Quick mull to 6.
Yeah, against the mull to 5 from Sodek. So that shouldn't really be much of a. Basically, Sodek can win with Dredge on a mull to 4 pretty easily. Honestly, Dredge is a deck that mulligans very, very well, so it's not really representative of how good his hand is. In fact, usually I'm a little bit more afraid when my opponent that's playing Dredge mulligans low because, well, they probably kept a very good hand.
Yeah, exactly. It means they're actually good at Dredge and are mulliganing to hands that actually do stuff instead of just keeping a high card quantity because they easily recoup card advantage.
Exactly.
But both decks have sources of card advantage. You see Ghost Empire playing a Wrenn and 6 here on turn 2. Also, he has a companion where Sodek doesn't. So you could argue that he was still up cards, despite Dredge drawing between 5 and 3 cards each time they Dredge a turn.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But yeah, it's really important for the 5-color Niv. Actually, 5-color Niv was one of the decks that I submitted. And my experience is that your hands that have turn 2 Wrenn are very different to the hands that don't have turn 2 Wrenn because they're a lot better.
That makes sense. That seems to be how Wrenn works a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. So usually a big part of the 5-color Niv deck is its mana base, and basically Wrenn immediately makes that a non-issue as long as it's paired with a fetch land, which of course Ghost Empire has multiple copies of here. We have the turn 2 Reunion.
Yeah, you see a Cathartic Reunion on 2, dredging. It looks like he put a Stinkweed Imp and a Life and Loam in the yard, which are no longer in the yard. Hit a Creeping Chill, 2 Blood Gas, 2 Amalgams, it looks like.
That's pretty solid. He's gonna get to go off a little bit on Ghost Empire next turn, and there's not much that he can do. He's been drawing a little bit too many lands over here, and hopefully this Uro delivers the goods, because
Uro will ramp Ghost Empire into Niv, provided Ghost Empire finds a copy of Niv. Otherwise, we might be just playing a Gigantha or something, right? We might see the companion come out pretty quick here, but. Yeah, I don't really know exactly how these decks square up against each other, but I would think, especially in game 1, Dredge doesn't really care about the card advantage that Niv provides, like a lot of the other fair decks in the format. So I would expect Sodek to have the edge, at least here in game 1, both in speed and in just the matchup heuristics, because the deck kind of just goes over the top of all of the card advantage aspects that the Niv deck has access to.
Exactly, and that's like the main power of the dredge strategy to begin with, right? It's just like you are fighting on an axis that most decks in the format are not really particularly well equipped to deal with, and we are seeing this right now, right? Sodek Mole to 5, and he is very, very easily going to have a solid 10 power in play by turn 3. Sorry, so.
He has 8 cards in hand right now, so you just cast a 2-mana draw 3 in the form of Life from Loam. So if you're counting cards, then even still Sodek's ahead. So
exactly. So we see just Sodek doing dredge things very effectively.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, what does this game look like where the Niv deck pulls out of it? What does it look like? Do they have access to any main deck graveyard hate? Do they have access? Like what does this game look like for Ghost Empire to be able to come back and win from this spot here?
Looking at the list right now, and it probably has to include Kaya's Guile. That is
the graveyard.
Exactly, just some way to nuke the graveyard. We see actually Solar Blaze as the super of choice, and this is solely because of the existence of Giganta, right? In order to make the companion work, we basically cannot afford to play something like Supreme Verdict. So Solar Blaze is the super of choice that Ghost Empire actually decided to go with. And here he actually finds the Bring to Light. So we'll see what...
Hell of a draw step. I will, if I do say so myself.
Exactly. So I would imagine that he has to figure out whether he has enough time to get a little bit lucky. And what that means is basically he can go get Niv here, or if he's in desperate mode and he'd rather just go for the sure thing and just get the Kaya's Guile in order to clear his opponent's graveyard. I would imagine that due to the current situation, he kind of has to go for Niv, and he has to hope to get lucky and find Kaya's Guile off the Niv trigger, because. Yeah, he's falling pretty far behind, and I don't think that a Kaya's Guile is going to be enough to keep him ahead. Also, Sodek was very smart by holding up the Bloodstained Mire, and cracked there, because even if Ghost Empire decides to go for the Kaya's Guile here, at least the Bloodghast that was killed can come back. Oh, in fact, he actually did not bring back a. Wow, that's so smart. He did not bring back one of the Bloodghasts.
It's like Anger of the Gods.
Wow.
You see that? So that good dredge player.
You see what I'm talking about? This guy knows what's up.
I mean, this guy is kind of a checkmate, because even grabbing Niv here, even if Ghost Empire finds Kaya's Guile, right, this Conflagrate combined with this Life from the Loam in the graveyard presents a lot of damage next turn, to the point where you could actually Conflagrate the Niv if you wanted to. I mean, you don't even have to. You can just slam your creatures into it. But if you are worried about kind of getting back attacked, you can just kill the Niv, throw the rest face, and just still be slamming in with the creatures in the meantime. This is certainly a tough spot from the Ghost Empire, despite the fact he just drew, 4 cards off of his 6/6 for 5 mana? Like, that's still a good rate. And he's still just very, very behind.
For sure. He's still behind, but that was a really, really good Niv. So he already has the next Niv already ready to go, thanks to the Bring to Light. He does have access to the Kaya's Guile, which should help him stabilize. And he even has Assassin's Trophy, particularly Lightning Helix, does a lot of work in this deck in order to help your life total, because you're basically hitting yourself a lot thanks to all the fetch lands and shock lands that you're playing in your deck. So Lightning Helix gaining life and Kaya's Guile also gaining life as well are very, very important to the deck's strategy in order to make sure that you can make it to the late parts of the game where you really shine, right? Where the deck really shines with all of its value engines.
Makes a lot of sense. You see Sodek taking a little bit on that fetch. It took a little second to think about it. I wonder if bringing back Bloodghast here means that Sodek has assembled lethal. I definitely trust Sodek to do the math. I haven't done it myself, but with the Conflag in the yard that we were talking about earlier, we might just be facing like Loam into play, 4th land, go for lethal with Conflag. We'll kind of see. And that's not even counting any kind of chills or anything that he finds off the dredge of the Loam.
Wow, that's really cool. He actually found a Nox So what the Ox does is it potentially allows him to put even more power into play, and depending on how much and how lucky he gets with the dredges, he can even trigger multiple Creeping Chills. If he does find 2, he can actually go ahead and make his Bloodghasts hasty, which is potentially relevant.
Which he could do with the Conflag as well, like beforehand. But I mean, like I said, I think this might just be super lethal. Like we're going to be conflagging for 9 here. Mm-hmm. So provided Sodak has the fetchable land, I think we might just be done here. We got 7 off the attackers plus 9 with the Conflag is Xaxes, if my math is correct.
Yep, we're gonna probably see the Conflag right here. Man, when Dredge goes off, it can be very, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean the deck's impressive, and Ox of Agonis certainly has done wonders for the deck. It kind of reminds me of a Faithless Looting effect, where they're just dredging, and it gives them something to do with their mana that lets them move through their deck very quickly, lets them dredge faster, find more creatures, find more chills, and just kind of it plays to their game plan so well. And that's before you even start talking about Ox of Agonis' actual body. Like, you know, being a 5/3 card, still no joke, right? And it brings back your amalgams. The card just fits seamlessly into Dredge.
Exactly.
You see Ghost Empire cannot grab those rested pieces fast.
Yeah, of course. Like a big part of his cyber strategy is going to depend on those resting pieces for sure. It is by far the most impactful card. Again, we see the 4th copy of Kaya's Guile actually also making its way into the main deck, unsurprisingly, and also Ashiok. This is kind of weird. There's a little bit of a dysynergy between Ashiok and Giganta. However, in the matchups where you do want Ashiok, for example, against Dredge, against something like Amulet, I think that you are pretty happy just like ignoring the companion advantage, because like Ashiok is just so absurd and it just takes over the game by itself. So you don't really need the 5/5 in order to win. Like the Ashiok is going to do the winning for you.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about like at the beginning of the last game is like you know, Giganta doesn't super represent a card in the Dredge matchup where they're just trying to go so over the top of individual card advantage that having access to this 5/5 companion, like this draft playable card, is only even going to be something you want to reach for if you kept a hand that interacts well with the graveyard and doesn't do anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this matchup's just not about that. You're not going to be winning a grindy top decking fest because you have Giganta in your companion zone. Like that's not how this matchup is going to play out a lot of the time.
Exactly. And yeah, funny enough, we see Dredge mulligan to 5 and then win the game on turn 4. Easy.
So you see Ghost Empire kind of tanking a little bit on these unmoored egos. What do you think of those in this matchup? It does present kind of like a surgical extraction effect, right? Like if Ghost Empire had surgical extractions, you would probably want them in this matchup. But those play a different role. Unmoored Ego is both a little bit more expensive and, you know, it doesn't always accomplish what you want it to do well. Like it kind of does what surgical does, but like at a way worse rate, which makes the card fundamentally very different in how it plays out in the matchup. Do you think you would want those in this matchup?
Personally, I would not play the Unmoored Egos. I think that in a matchup like against Dredge, you just don't really have the time. Right, you just cannot really afford to spend your turn 3 to Unmoored Ego, something that maybe they didn't Dredge, or maybe something that they didn't quite, that is not what the game is about at that point. So you need to have a very, very good read on how the game is playing out. And Unmoored Ego doesn't do anything to stop the cards that the Dredge player already has in play, which is also another big part of it. So personally, I wouldn't want it. I can understand wanting them kind of like as a card to kind of like shut the door, basically. Because you can effectively gain 12 life if you manage to like take chills. Like a Dredge very often gets to a point where the board is stable, and if they are able to Dredge, like 2 chills in the top like 5 or 10 cards of their deck, they're gonna win, or otherwise they're gonna lose. And with Unmoored Ego, you can just make sure that is not a problem. Like they are not gonna find those egos because you can just take care of them. So maybe that's why. But if he actually draws them in his hand earlier in the game, it's gonna be pretty brutal. Look at this beauty of a hand. You're snapping
I think Ghost Empire is not going to think too long on this one. Having access to turn 2 recipes on the play is Pretty nice. Now, Sodek does know he's playing against, very, very many Rest in Pieces in his lifetime. He knows it's coming. The deck lists are open. I'm interested to see, does Sodek aggressively mulligan? Like, I would not be surprised to see Sodek mulligan a little bit low and keep a hand, no matter what hand it keeps, 7 or anywhere in the range, that has a plan for Rest in Peace, whether it's answering it or playing around it or whatever, whatever that actually manifests itself into. So Sodek knows what he's doing, and he knows Rest in Peace is coming. He knows that, Ghost Empire is not going to keep a 7 in the era of London mulligans that doesn't interact with the graveyard in some way. I'm interested to see how that's going to affect choices. He is shocked at this Gemstone Caverns.
Ghost Empire's face is exactly the same that I just made.
Absolutely surprised to see that. Pitching a Narcomoeba. All right, that's interesting.
Wow,
3.
That's value. That is value. Again, on a multi-5. So, wow, that's crazy.
Immediately cycling the Forgotten Cave. Maybe that signals a little bit of weakness of the hand. Maybe just a few lands, but nothing, no dredgers, nothing functional. I think you can take a few signals off that Forgotten Cave cycle there.
Yeah, for sure. That he has another land. Sorry. First of all, right? You can basically guarantee that Sodek has access to another land, and here I guess a loan would be pretty good from Sodek. Yeah. This Rest in Peace.
It does also mean loam. That's something that cycling can definitely signal, and that's a nice loam to have, because you see it puts a dredger in the yard while committing minimally to Rest in Peace, and this is the kind of plan I was talking about. Like Sodek did actually play really smart around Rest in Peace here as much as he can, where he committed as little as possible to the trigger of Rest in Peace, and now that it's in play, he knows it's there. He can kind of formulate a plan to actually remove it from the table.
Yeah, for sure. And this is actually not a free Rest in Peace for Ghost Empire. I mean, look at his hand. He has a Lightning Helix that he can cast, and that's about it.
These burrows are missing quite a few colors. And here we see the Stinkweed Imp, and we've begun the draft unplayable stage of the playing into Rest in Peace. But unfortunately for Ghost Empire, Lightning Helix is pretty good against the draft unplayable strategy.
Yep. But we see Ghost Empire is as far as he can possibly be from casting this Uro, still pretty far from this Kaya's Guile, and even if he does cast the Uro, it gets exiled to his own Rest in Peace.
That's not ideal. That is not good deck building there.
We see the combo deck working on all cylinders.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, both decks really here firing on all cylinders. Kaya's Guile being only 1 black source away is pretty nice. You see that little scrunch face from Ghost Empire. Lightning Helix, while castable, is certainly not the ideal draw here.
Yeah,
and we're really seeing the draft decks here.
Exactly, but I mean, at least we do have a card that can stop Sodek from literally assembling any kind of army,
Yeah, that blue source coming from Gemstone Caverns allows you to cast prized amalgams. We have trained Armadons in Sodek's range at the moment.
Exactly. So, there we go.
That's a very good draw.
That's a really good one. It's basically that solves all of his mana issues. Still can't cast Uro, but
not all the mana issues. It begins to solve the mana issues.
Exactly.
But unlocking Kaya's Guile is a big step.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. At least Kaya's Guile now represents an answer to not only a creature that Sodek can play, it also presents a 1/1 that could potentially be a threat. I don't think that's what Ghost Empire is gonna go for. I think that he wants to hold this Kaya's Guile for in case Sodek has an answer to this Rest in Peace. So I imagine that he's not going to just fire off the Guile.
Sodek is at 12. I was going to ask that. Are you interested in making a 1/1 and maybe padding your life total a little bit, thinking that if Sodek had an answer, he would have it by now, and maybe just start trying to pressure the life total from 12? Seems Ghost Empire agrees with you. And now we draw a second Pillar of the Purins, among the best possible draws once again, and we can start moving through these Uros.
Oh, yeah. The Uro is basically bad Explorer here, but
look at him. He's happy with that one. Look at him cheesing.
That's all that he needs. That's literally all that he needs. So now he's going to be able to slam Niv next turn, and the game is basically over. I don't think that Sodek can, even if he has an answer to the Rest in Peace, I think that at this point, the Niv is just going to pull Ghost Empire so far ahead that I don't think that Sodek's going to be able to come back from this. unless he does have like exactly Nature's Claim or something on Ghost Empire's hand step.
Like right now.
Exactly, like Ghost Empire plays the Niv, and then like just plays Nature's Claim in response or something.
Yeah. I mean, you certainly can see the problem on Sodek's side of the table. I'm not sure I've played very many games where Dredge hits their 7th land drop. So I think Sodek certainly drawing rather poorly in the top deck war of finding something that relevant to do first.
Yeah.
And Niv Mizzet, it doesn't have to hit very many cards. Probably doesn't have to hit any cards at all. It's a 2-turn clock by itself. Should be able to close the door in this game pretty quick because, like I said, I don't think even if Sodek finds the answer on the next turn, Shriekhorn has to hit like a pretty insane series of cards for Sodek to kind of get his way out of this. Not out of it yet, but it certainly is not looking great for Sodek. And I'd definitely throw the advantage bar in favor of Ghost Empire here.
Yeah, for sure. Two cards in hand also means that reunion is not really a possibility because remember that we're talking about. Wow, he just mailed Ghost Empire. That's hilarious. I just noticed that.
Good for more info on that deck. How
exactly.
I guess I respect it.
Yeah, for sure. No, what I was saying is like we were considering the fact that he would need to have an answer to the Rest in Peace, and then like his side would have been to have an answer to Rest in Peace and then Cathartic Reunion with 2 cards to discard, and Sodek just doesn't have enough cards in hand to make that work. So that's not really even an alternative that he has access to.
Yeah, and you see he played Stinkweed, which does threaten to trade with the Niv. Not actually the worst exchange, but I mean Ghost Empire's hand at this point is loaded with answers to a 1/2 flyer, and once again, provided Sodek continues to fail to draw answers to this Rest in Peace, we're gonna see the door on this game close pretty quick.
Yeah, and you see something very very interesting there that Ghost Empire could have used the Lightning Helix to answer the Stinkweed Imp. Instead, he chose to use the Kaya's Guile because he knows that Sodek is so far behind at this point that there's no way that even if he answers the Rest in Peace that he can come back up. So thanks to Ren, the 1/1 token, and Lightning Helix, he can actually present lethal on the next turn, even if Sodek somehow finds an answer to the Niv Mizzet.
So you see Unmoored Ego being cast here. What do you name? Because you're obviously looking to see the rest of their deck. We will very likely see Sodek concede in response to this to hide how he sideboarded.
That's exactly how.
But what do you name, assuming it does resolve?
Nature's Claim is the card that I would name, yeah. I'm very surprised that Sodek would not concede there.
Ghost Empire shocked to see no Nature's Claims. I'm frankly shocked Sodek didn't show him like Sodek.
Mind blown. I guess that Sodek was relying on Thoughtseize to answer the Rest in Peace preemptively. Maybe he just thinks that if the Rest in Peace comes into play, it's just so devastating to begin with that it's not even worth fighting over Resolve's Rest in Peace. I wonder if this is going to affect Ghost Empire sideboarding. That's something that I would find very interesting. Like knowing that Sodek is choosing to not play Rest in Peace, Nature's Claim, or Assassin's Trophy, or something like that. I wonder if he's going to change his sideboard plan. I don't think he does. I don't think there's anything that really gets affected that Ghost Empire can do. Maybe he wants Veil, but it seems that doesn't seem like that. I don't think that's where you want to be. The axis that you want to be fighting the game over, especially on the draw where you can.
Yeah, I expect that. Well, if anything, I expect Sodek to change how he boarded. I suspect he has a different plan against Rest in Peace decks on the play and the draw, and so I expect we may see some changes there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would expect that Sodek will at least change something. From Ghost Empire, I'm not sure what he can do. Maybe that means that he wants Solar Blaze.
If he's thinking about Thoughtseize and expects Thoughtseize to still be in the deck, you could consider something like Veil of Summer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I don't think that Veil of you're literally just stopping Thoughtseize, right? Yeah, he's trying to figure out the same thing right now, and he's looking at the Veil.
I don't think it stops Creeping Chill.
Exactly. No, it doesn't stop Chill. So it's literally just the Thoughtseizes, and you're on the draw, right? So it doesn't even.
It does look a lot worse on the draw.
Exactly. So even if Sodek does have the turn 1 Thoughtseize, they're gonna take your rest in peace anyway. So
it does kind of like bringing the sweeper back. We have a lot of Moby cards in the deck that just present like pseudo card advantage. Like I don't know if we need every copy of Niv Mizzet, for instance, in our deck. I don't know if we need, like it just seems like Solar Blaze under a rest in peace if they manage to get, if Sodic managed to get a little bit of power out ahead of, like out in front of your rest in peace or out in front of your graveyard interaction, you're going to want to be able to nuke the board and then, down tick your Ashiok afterwards or whatever your graveyard hate actually looks like. Kaya's Guile kind of looks the same way. So I do think the Solar Blaze, while it isn't like a 10 in the matchup, is something that is good enough. And when you have a tutor like Bring to Light, it's something that I think you're going to want to have in your arsenal, in your deck when you're trying to fight on the interact with the graveyard axis to help catch you up from behind.
You know what I just realized? Does Solar Blaze work with Stink with him? Because it doesn't have Death Touch, right?
Oh, you're right. It doesn't. It might not kill. I don't think it does kill Stinkweed because it has to deal combat damage, and that specifically doesn't say combat damage. So that's where that wording comes up a little hilarious. Different. Yeah, no, that's insane. Very narrow. I doubt it that is going to come up, but hey, it certainly could. It certainly could.
That is a hilarious interaction. That's really funny. This is a beautiful mulligan that we're going to see from Ghost Empire right about now. Exactly.
Yeah, he could click that mulligan button fast enough. This hand doesn't strike me as a lot better either. I mean, it casts your spells, but your spells aren't exciting.
Yeah. He's trying to figure out whether Sodic is mulliganing or not, because if he's mulliganing down to 5, he actually doesn't see before you used to be able to see the number, right, to in the hand number, but with the London mulligan it doesn't. This strikes me as the best hand that we've seen so far.
Really? You would keep this? I'm not sure I would keep this. I think if the point at which we've committed mulling to 5 looking for graveyard interaction, I don't think this hand cuts it. This hand does have land function. Yeah, Kaya's Guile, but it's slow. We're on the draw. Like, on the play, I'd be excited about this hand, I think. On the draw, I think this hand could very easily just get run over. But we'll see. We'll see. Ghost Empire disagrees, and we'll just see how the games play out. But I think that's something that, at the end of this game, no matter which way it goes, I think that's going to certainly be one of the talking points of this game was this mulligan.
That's huge.
Boy, it looks fantastic here, doesn't it?
That is huge. Wow, that is like the $1 million Thoughtseize right there. Yep.
That is on Ghost Empire's face. He's could not have been happier with how that Thoughtseize played out.
Oof, that is insane. So if Sodex plays to Hardcasted Bloodghast here, Ghost Empire is gonna be thrilled.
Already in draft deck, huh?
Yep, draft deck mode has been enabled, and Ghost Empire is flooding a little bit hard here. This Kaya's Guile is going to do some work at helping stabilize. Again, it allows you to gain some life. It makes your opponent sacrifice a creature as well. So it is definitely going to do some work in helping him stabilize, but it's certainly not going to be enough, especially if
Ghost's not out of it yet. I mean, Sodic, I think, in particular, talks all the time about how one-shot graveyard effects are a lot easier to deal with, especially since this one costs 3 mana, right? Like that's very expensive. And Ghost Empire has no pressure. Like Sodic has all the time in the world, and if Sodic does something like Shriekhorn, it suddenly gets a little awkward using that Kaya's Guile because as soon as you hit their graveyard, they have a mill effect already dialed up on the table that you know about to start rebuilding again immediately.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. And right now, unless Ghost Empire manages to find Rest in Peace or something like that, I think that Sodic is advantage significantly. Because it only takes 1 card for him to snowball out of control, and that's not the case for Ghost Empire. Like, he would need to draw exactly either Ashiok or Rest in Peace. Those are his 2 big haymakers, and those are probably like the only cards that matter in this matchup right now. So we're gonna see how he's able to hang in there. The modes that he chooses on this Kaya's Guile are gonna be pretty interesting.
I expect he'll probably have Sodic sack a creature and exile the graveyard. Yeah, both of these creatures want to be in the graveyard. So if you are going to sack a creature, it gives you the opportunity to kind of remove a relevant creature from the table that you don't want in the graveyard also, because of the way it sacks the creature and then exiles it. If I remember correctly, it resolves down the card.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right. This still isn't a good spot. This isn't exactly how Ghost Empire wants to be using this Kaya Scout. He would love to be able to, take the last dredger in the yard or whatever. Is like invalidate a meaningful card. Whereas instead, all Sodek did was play a 2-mana 2/1 and a 3-mana 1/2 and attack, and suddenly, Ghost Empire feels pressured enough, which I think is pretty valid. He feels pressured enough to act and use his one-shot exile effect. So now Sodek once again has a bunch of live draws turned on, whereas Ghost Empire is just, was just sitting on lands. And Niv Mizzet is a nice draw, and it's a good way to start to stabilize the game.
We have a plan. Yeah. But if Sodek finds... Sodek
still, as we saw game 1, can go over the top of it.
Exactly. So if Sodek is just like one Cathartic Reunion or Merchant of the Veil away from Spiral Mana Control, and I guess that he just doesn't have it, though. We just see the Bloodghast getting in there one more time.
Sodek, I can say what has drawn pretty poorly in this match thus far. Hit a lot of land drops, keeping up with the Niv deck, and cast a lot of below vanilla test rate creatures.
Yep. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. Future Bloodghasts are going to be hasty now. Maybe that becomes relevant down the line.
Sure. I mean, would require once again some probably pretty big dredges in order to get around this Niv Mizzet, but it is not irrelevant. That is certainly something that can easily matter. And I mean, with Creeping Chill being able to go over the top of something like Niv, Ghost Empire still has pressure to slam the door, even though Niv Mizzet is a pretty large creature, does get the game over quickly. It is a 3-turn clock right now, so he does feel pressure to go ahead and end the game as quickly as possible.
Exactly. And I mean, Niv is coming down next turn, so unless maybe Sodek can have a Thoughtseize, that would be good for him. Hardcast Chill.
Hardcast Chill isn't impressive, but does pressure the life total.
It does, but yeah, the problem is like now Niv comes down and is going to draw between 2 and 4 cards. If one of those is a Uro, we are just done, right? Because like this Bloodghast is not attacking anymore. Like the Bloodghast is not a clock any longer. So
certainly,
I mean, Ghost Empire has nothing. So if this Niv doesn't find something good,
I mean, Niv does look at 10 cards, so these decks are built to enable Niv and draw relevant cards. And there's a Bring to Light. Okay. Helix not impressive, but Bring to Light as a 5-mana tutor, whatever you want, should be good enough if Ghost can get another turn here. But Cathartic Reunion, I believe, is still a pretty live draw from Sodek, assuming he has anything like a Dredger in hand. Look, you see Ghost Empire. He's like, that's a draw step that keeps him playing.
Finally, we have a reasonable draw step there. I would imagine that Sodek's actually going to attack here with the Bloodghast, mostly just so Ghost Empire blocks.
Yeah, do you think he will? Because if he blocks, that's 3 amalgams hitting the table. And
exactly. That's what I was going to say. So, like, I wonder what the play is here for Ghost Empire. You probably have to take it, but at that point, you're just dead to a Conflagrate or like Chill plus like literally anything. Even an Acroamoeba just kills you at that point. Helix probably means that he's just going to take it, though. The Helix in his hand probably means that he's just going to take it.
Yeah, I feel pretty inclined to take it. Like, a lot of Sodek's options get turned on if you block this Bloodghast. I mean, Sodek could even reach for something like doing the Ox of Agonis if there's another Dredger in Sodek's hand, which I believe he actually did dredge, so there is a Dredger in his hand. He can use the Ox to start moving through the deck quickly, and you could easily just get shot out with 2 Creeping Chills by putting the 9th card in the graveyard. But, I don't know. It just feels like Sodek has a lot more options if you do block than if you don't. So exactly. I personally feel inclined not to block, but we'll see. We'll see what Ghost actually ends up deciding to do.
Yeah, it depends on what he's trying to play around here. One important thing is that he's 1 card short of getting back the Ox. So you're not worried about him going nuts and getting multiple chills this turn. Unless, like, he knows for a fact that Sting with him was dredged, so he knows about 1 card from Sodek's hand, but that's about it. The other 2 could be anything. Yeah, this is a textbook attack from Sodek right here.
Well,
so
it certainly ain't blocking, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that this attack, what this attack tells you is that Sodek has a land in hand, right? Because he can get back the Bloodghast with the land.
Well, like I said, he can bring back Ox because there's 8 cards in the yard right now. Like the Bloodghast would be the 9th card if you block. So he could bring back Ox if you block. So he actually has a lot of options available. There we go.
So it was Loam.
Mm-hmm. And well, you knew about the Loam. That was the Dredger that ended up in yard. He can cast Loam, get back a land. And if it's a fetch land, then he can actually play around the Bring to Light that Sodek knows about. Sodek can play around it by bringing back the Bloodghast on Instep and bringing back the prized amalgams at that time.
Interesting. So I would imagine that he's going to Bring to Light here for...
My guess would be Kaya's Guile.
Kaya's Guile?
Get another one shot in the graveyard seems really attractive when there's an Ox just sitting in the yard. It feels like the way you get punked out of this game involves Creeping Chills. And the only Dredger you know about is currently in hand. Is that right? Yeah. And there's a loaded graveyard that you can go ahead and shoot out the way. And unless Sodek has another way to draw cards or something, then you can assemble lethal on next turn with 2 Lightning Helixes.
Yep. Yeah, this seems pretty good for Ghost Empire here. He does. Oh yeah, they play Blood Crypt. So yeah, so I guess that he does have the mana to kill Sodek next turn, and this Merchant of the Veil is just not going to cut it. So at this point, it's kind of like a reunion or bust for Sodek, I would imagine.
Yeah, it certainly needs to be something that draws cards immediately. I mean, something like 5th land Ox from hand could be a play. Like, I mean, there's a few lines that get something moving for Sodek this turn, but they're all, it requires getting lucky from there. Like, just even having access to that requires getting lucky and finding some chills and stuff like that. He needs 2 chills, it looks like. So it's certainly a big ask. Sodek isn't necessarily out of it, but is once again back against the wall, required to get something moving this turn. And I mean, he doesn't know he's dead on board, or I'm sorry, he's dead to like the information we know, but he is actually dead on the next turn with the attack and double Lightning Helix. So it is required to happen this turn. And Sodek may not even know that and may try to just like plan up for something next turn. But I think he knows. I think he knows about one of the Helixes, and I think he can piece together that he's just not coming back if he doesn't.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is, like, even though he doesn't know about the second Helix, he knows that his possibilities just get a lot more narrow next turn, even if Ghost Empire does not have Lightning Helix. So, like, if he does have something, he is going to make a move right now, I think.
Well, I think the fact that he's attacking means he doesn't, because, I mean, that shuts the door on more Bloodghasts, right?
Exactly.
So that means Sodek's not in a great position.
Yeah, so we're probably going to see, like, a Hardcast Stinky. I mean,
Hardcast Chill keeps Sodek playing, or even around the 2 Helixes.
Yeah. I mean, Hardcast Stink with Imp means that he's actually not dead this turn, because Ghost Empire is going to have to use 1 Helix on the Stink with Imp. Otherwise, the Niv can't really attack through.
Yeah, there are a few plays that give Sodek another draw step for sure. And I mean, Stink with Imp's maybe even one of the better ones, because it requires, a Lightning Helix to move it out the way, and then now you have a Dredge 5 creature in the yard. So, like, even though Stink with Imp, casting Stink with Imp is usually a sign of weakness from the Dredge deck, it would actually be, it's a pretty good play here for Sodek and keeping him playing Magic from the information we currently have access to.
Yeah, if you consider Dredge playing Magic, of course.
Yeah. that's a dagger at the Dredge deck. You're gonna hurt Sodek's soul.
I'm sorry, I had to throw it in there.
Life I felt compelled. Targets play the land, huh? Oh, that's the tap land. Tap land isn't exciting.
Yeah, I think we're done here. He does get the Blood Crypt, and now.
And that's just again. Look, he just glances at chat. He knows. Ghost Empire has had some sick rips in this game for a great game of Magic, and it looks like the door is shut on this game, and we're going to see Ghost Empire taking the match over Sodek, and Sodek's first Dredge deck will be eliminated. Sodek, of course, has a second one in his pool of decks that he has access to, but we've begun the slog in cutting Sodek off of his love and his passion.
Rest in peace, Dredge 1. Rest in peace. You see, you hear that one too? Oh, I'm gonna be here all day, guys. I'm gonna be here all day.
Somebody give me another partner. I can't do that. Oh, there we go. We got Michael. That's much better.
Don't worry, my jokes are much worse here.
That's true. I'm probably just stranded. Chat, you're here for me, right? Chat.
Chat's got
you're
your
not
back.
going to enable this, right? Come on.
Chat's
come on.
got your back. Don't worry about it.
I liked it. I liked it so much. I'm going to repeat it. Rest in peace, Dredge One. Rest in peace.
Nice.
All right. What are we doing here?
That was remarkably played by both players, setting up lethal a few turns in advance. Like game one, how Sodek just set up where if the Niv was played right there, he just won the following turn with that Conflagrate. That was a brilliant way. And you guys pointed out how he left like that fetch land up. He just playing around everything he could. And then game three with Marcus just setting up that lethal line was just brilliantly played by both players. I mean, Sodek didn't draw particularly well, but that's Magic, and that's the game we play.
Yeah, I mean, that was a multi-5 on for Ghost Empire, right? He knew that he had to mulligan those hands into something good, and even though it wasn't something good, it ended up working in the best possible way, which is like Sodek had exactly one payoff. He was able to snap it off on his turn one, and then Sodek just like spun his wheels for multiple turns.
Yeah,
without
I
ever
thought
getting
he's bought a lot of turns, right?
Yeah.
Of Sodek not playing Magic, which is kind of what needed to happen. And that was originally what I didn't like about the hand, right? That was kind of when I was saying at the beginning of game three that when at the end of that game three, I think a lot of this match was going to hinge on that mulligan and how effective that mulligan was. My concerns being that, Thoughtseize isn't always effective against some of their hands. Usually they have like one or two enablers, and sometimes, the enabler isn't even like a good one to hit with Thoughtseize. And so sometimes Thoughtseize is a little ineffective, and Kai's Guile slow on the draw. Ghost Empire, being disciplined, was like, hey, I think this is within the keepable range, snapped it off, and ended up that Thoughtseize lined up perfect. That Kaya's Guile ended up working out, and we got to see Ghost Empire rewarded with a W for that.
It was definitely a risk, but I've seen Sodek keep a hand which his opponent, like he didn't have any. All he had were dredgers in it. It was actually Sodek versus Dido, and I think it's clipped on Sodek's Twitter if you want to check that out. But I was watching him stream, and he was live, and he kept a hand, and it was game three against Grixis Death Shadow and Dredge, and he was like, he's like, wait, if he Thoughtseizes me, I just win, like turn two. So he only had, I think the only card in his hand was the 1/2 not Death Toucher, Stinkweed.
Yeah.
So when you get the turn one Thoughtseize against him, he's just like, yep, thank you for helping me. Thank you for being my enabler. So you run that risk with Thoughtseize against Dredge sometimes, but it definitely paid off.
It definitely can be good, and we got to see that happen. Yeah, exactly.
Galaxy Brain Keep.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was match number one. I just want to quickly remind everyone that we are sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and by Card Hoarder. So much appreciated. They have done great things to help us be here today. We're going to take a quick short break, and then match number two is KO Diamonds against Spider Space. So we'll be here in just a minute. We'll be back in just a minute.
Here we go. Ready for KO Diamonds versus Spider Space.
Looks like we're going to be watching from Spider Space side. Both returning members from last year's Modern Streamers League, if that's correct.
That's correct. That is correct. As you can see, Spider was on Team Ice, and KO Diamonds was actually on Team Fire, I think. Maybe.
Ooh, team rivalry action? Okay.
No, I think actually KO Diamonds was on Team Ice as well. Never mind.
Oh. Yeah. Team kills, huh?
Yeah, I know. This is some friendly fire right here.
Friendly fire.
Okay, so Spider. Oh yeah. So Spider
started out with some Yorion versus Lurrus. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So this is a list that Spider Space has been playing and has been having a ton of success with. It's basically like a Yorion or Yorion if you are like Saint Doom.
Oh no.
But he's been having a lot of success with this Jeskai Saheeli list with Yorion. So you're basically playing the Jeskai Saheeli shell with Season Pyromancer, Snapcaster Mages, and then the Faded Guardian plus a Healy combo. And then you kind of are just playing 20 more lands because that's all that Yorion asks of you to do. And yeah, it's been pretty sweet, and he's been killing it with it. I actually played against him yesterday in a prelim, and I think he went 4-1. He was my first loss.
That's still fairly impressive. I mean, Yorion's a card that's been showing up a lot in Standard recently for its power level. People consider it one of the more quote-unquote free companions to include in their deck because it is one that doesn't really require you to change too many of the cards in your deck. So a lot of the companions have specific requirements that make you that keep you off playing certain cards. Like you see KO Diamonds playing a Jund Lurrus deck. Well, now this Jund deck doesn't have access to Liliana of the Veil, right? You have to make concessions in your card choice. Yorion is not one of those cards. You simply just add 20 more cards to your deck.
Yeah, and we see that KO Diamonds just had the nuts there, which is turn 2 Ren 6 on the play. That is really tough to beat for a deck like Spider Spaces. Fortunately, Spider had the force for the Ren there, but you see that it wasn't free, right? Like, he's out of gas. He literally has nothing.
Yeah, so, and I mean, if Lurrus comes down this turn and starts flashing back this Bobble, that's also an established Howling Mine, right? And even worse, you see a followed up Renin 6, which will allow for Lurrus next turn. You see Spider Space is not happy about that. He's already shaking his head.
This is absolutely brutal. This is worst case scenario. So basically, KO Diamonds had a 2-for-1 for free, basically, because he already had the second Ren lined up and ready to go. And yeah, Spider Space is just in all sorts of trouble right here,
if you will.
Yeah, basically, except that it didn't discard any of the 4 lands that Spider has in hand. It actually discarded
spells. Yeah, exactly.
So it's better Hint to Torak.
Spider Space, not the most pleased with Remand, but Remand does play. It allows you to Remand Lurrus on the next turn, so you're not falling as far behind as you otherwise would be. But as you spoke to kind of, or at least alluded to a little bit earlier, this is a matchup that is often going to come down to card advantage, right? The way this is going to play out is what matters is cards in hand. Very unlike the matchup we watched previously. This match is about who ends up kind of grinding the other out of resources, and as soon as you are able to draw multiple cards a turn without actually taking any actions, like KO Diamonds is doing here with Ren and 6, and KO Diamonds would also be able to do with Lurrus and stuff like that. That's a really easy way to pull ahead in this style of matchup.
Exactly. Also, he never has to worry about missing a land drop, and this Ren just threatens to eventually win the game if left unanswered. So it's all sorts of trouble for Spider Space in every single possible way. He's just cycling the Remand here, which makes a lot of sense. He's also going to be able to bolt the Bob here. He knows that he's only delaying the unavoidable here, of course, because that Lurrus is looming.
So Spider Space did choose to remand, didn't choose to remand the Bob, chose to remand the Tarmogoyf. Lurrus still is on the back burner, right? That still has not been cast. You know that Spider Space could get a little bit more mana advantage out of his remand. He could trade it for a little bit more of Spider Space's mana, of KO Diamond's mana. But Spider Space being behind already on board, appears to have believed, that the pressure from another creature being on board this turn, being able to leave Code Diamonds with no creatures in play, being able to resolve something like a Saheeli was a little bit more important. And I think that really speaks to kind of Spider Space's experience in these kinds of matchups. Maybe not this specific matchup as much because companions are relatively new, but Spider Space certainly knows, kind of what's important and like has established a plan for winning this game. And it involves not falling further behind on board. Exactly.
However, this turn, Code Diamonds is going to get to do a lot of stuff. One thing that we see is that Saheeli could have gone down on the Astrolabe in order to guarantee a draw, right? It would have copied the Astrolabe, and then Spider Space could have gotten a land from it. But that leaves it immediately dead to the opposing Red and 6. So he chooses to go instead for a plus, which would at least require 2 cards if Lightning Bolt plus Red and 6. So it would actually require a card. Well, there we go.
Spider Space kind of shrug. Casting Mouse Repulse is not casting Lurrus. And so I think
exactly.
I think Spider Space was actually kind of okay with that trade. That his body posture, just everything about that trade, he seemed completely okay with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting move on Code Diamond's part.
Yeah, honestly, if I had been Code Diamonds, like sensing that Spiders basically just tapped out there, I would have probably slammed the Lurrus. But I guess that he's afraid of just like straight up dying, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does show respect for the combo, and even just accumulating a lot of value with just being able to play Yorion, right? Like, because Spider would be able to draw a card with Astrolabe and then flicker the Saheeli again to keep it from, to keep its loyalty high with Yorion. So maybe, it's a little bit of respect for the Yorion play, being able to begin to add.
Yorion.
That's true. Of course, Saint Doom tells us that it's actually Yorion. It's not Yorion Drake, so you might want to fix that,
Oh, I'm 0% to fix it. We're just going to confuse the entire Twitch chat and not even address it. Just have them argue the whole time about whether it's Yorion or Urion. Okay, that's mean. We should agree on a way. If you want to call it Urion, I'll call it Urion. I'm not going to be happy about it. I just want you to know this is sabotage of this stream to call it Urion. But, I will.
The memes are strong. Something that's interesting that it just happened there is Spider Space just kept a bolt, right? This bolt is not really doing anything. However, Spider just feels like it's just dead to the Red and 6 ultimate. And this is like a 2-mana card that came into play on turn 3. I mean, turn 2 technically was the first attempt, and it's completely taking over this game, right? Like, the bolt is not doing anything at all, but Spider Space was forced to keep it just because he's just literally just dying to the onboard Ren that's threatening the ultimate next turn. So that was definitely
does answer Lurrus. If Lurrus comes down, you can pick that off, and you see, look, he's counting kind of his land situation. You have Mystic Sanctuary, so you can pick a spell that you want to draw with Yorion, and Yorion can draw 3 cards on the next turn while adding to the board. Spider Space might be setting up here for a pretty big turn, and you can see Spider Space kind of glancing at the Lurrus, kind of wondering why Code Diamonds has not yet cast it. I mean, obviously, clearing the way for it with Inquisition first makes a lot of sense. I suspect we'll see it second main, but which we are now in. But I do think, Spider Space looks very out of this. But, with a draw 3 attached to a 4/5 just dialed up, like that represents a lot of, a big swing in Spider Space's favor and potentially pulling him back into this game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is why you see people playing 80 cards in their deck, right? This is basically, if KO Diamonds had a Discord spell, it wouldn't have mattered, right? Because he can't do anything about the Yorion.
Can't take Yorion.
Exactly. It's just like it's over there in the companion zone, and there's nothing that he can do about it. So, yeah, people are happily.
Lurrus come down here and should immediately start drawing cards with. Oh no, we're gonna replay the Dark Confidant.
Yeah, that is. So I mean, it's important to know for that play that I think that Code Diamonds already looked at Spiders at his list, and he knows that he doesn't have any supers.
Yeah, there's no sweepers. There's no sweepers in the main deck game. So that's certainly an informed play saying, like, look, you don't have sweepers. I'm not going to get punished for this. Be another Howling Mine.
Exactly. And that's what he's doing. Is like, do you want to kill my Lurrus? Okay, then Bob is going to take over. So that is what
this
we're
lightning
seeing
bolt
right
looks
now.
looks a little taxed from this side of the table. Even with
Yep.
Yorion being able to rebuy another bolt, there's just too many things you want a lightning bolt, and it has to start with Lurrus, right? Because if you bolt the Confidant, it gets immediately replayed, and Spider's taking a lot of damage on board from this Tarmogoyf as well. There's just a lot of situations here that where we see, even if Spider Space can kind of pull his way back into this game with this Yorion drawing a bunch of cards, he's very far behind on life totals, and being behind on board and life totals certainly means that this game is going to be hard for Spider to crawl back into. Yeah, that was
something good added to his collection. Good to know. Good for him. So that's what I was going to say. Like all of this card advantage fight is almost making us forget the fact that Spider is at 9.
Life totals still matter. You still die if you go to 0, even if you have 4 or 5 cards in hand.
Exactly. So like this Yorion might just be on chump block duty over there.
It certainly doesn't look good.
Yeah, and that is if KO Diamonds doesn't just draw an Assassin's Trophy and just ends the game immediately. So
yeah, you can see Spider, despite having a draw, that is probably one of the most unhappy I have seen somebody be drawing 3 cards against the Jund deck. Normally, you draw 3 cards against the Jund deck, you're having a great time. Ancestral Recall, we take those. Yeah, hell, one of them Informed. You get a Scry 2 attached to one of them, and he's you can tell just by his posture that he's there's draws that Code Diamonds has that leaves Spider Space just dead. And even beyond that, even if Spider Space does get another turn, he still needs a lot to go right for him to be able to win this game. And he topped the Bolt and the Jace the Mind Sculptor. It makes a lot of sense. Both.
Yeah. I actually like that. This is kind of like setting up for the best case scenario. And he's going to need something like a Jace in order to be able to come back into this game. Even though it's not the best answer to Tarmogoyf, it delays the Tarmogoyf for a turn. So he can use the Jace to just like minus on the Goyf, because like this Yorion is jump blocking here. Like there's not much else that's happening. Otherwise we're just dead to a lightning bolt or a couple of Ren minuses. So we definitely don't want to be going down that route. So this Jace is going to very likely just minus on the Goyf, hoping that there's not another one, of course, right? If there's another time that comes down, the game is just effectively over.
Yeah, we're going to need to start drawing a lot of Path to Exiles very quickly. Yep. We'll have to Jace brainstorm into 2 paths or something insane.
Exactly. So, he's kind of like setting up for the best case scenario, because like the bad case scenario and like the normal case scenario, he can't beat. So
right. The Seal of Fire adding to the board, does that present lethal even around a chump block? We got 4 or 5. No, we're missing quite a bit of damage here. But we'll see. 4. If this is a Kolaghan's command, we can actually just pick the... Yeah, okay. We can do 2 damage, then 2 damage with Seal of Fire, 1 damage with Ren. Put Yorion into the graveyard, and I believe it should be all clear for lethal once that enchantment hits the graveyard. Looks like I can't super well see the... Is that a 7/8 now? Whew! That's got to be achievement unlocked.
7/8 is nice. 7/8 is nice. The times that I have achieved the 7/8 Goyf was thanks to Tribal with Tarfire. Big brain plays. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna see how game 2 is looking for Spider Space in terms of sideboarding. Blood Moon is such a weird card against Jund.
You can see him about to look at the mana base, like how are we playing around Blood Moon, which a good thing to do, especially when there's open deck lists.
Exactly. So I could see Blood Moon finding its way into the mana base, mostly because of the nurturing peatland. Like again, we just saw how important Ren was that game. And making Ren a lot worse, which is basically what Blood Moon does, has a ton of value. But we did see something there, right? In the 4 mana the 4 mana red instant. That is one that Spider is going to be watching out for. That's Boyle. His mana base is
it's a powerful one. It hurts. I mean, I've seen some players beat it, but usually it involves something like an Uro or something, right? Like you have to fetch your mountain, fetch your plane, start using your Astrolapes to cast your spells, because it's essentially a one-sided Armageddon in the form of Boyle blowing up all the islands. Not great. Not great for you.
And instant speed too, because
Yeah, of course. Why did that card need to be an instant? Thanks,
why
8th edition.
would it be a sorcery,
like,
right?
Why wouldn't you Armageddon an instant speed? Well, I don't understand.
They really don't make them like they used to, right?
No, thank God they don't. Thank God. That is not something I miss about old Magic design. I'll tell you that right now.
Now we only get Luruses and Okos and Veil of Summers, so definitely.
I do prefer those cards to Armageddons. Like, I don't care how miserable they are. I really don't care. I don't like Armageddon is not a play style for me, but of course opinions are opinions. I'm interested to see Spider Space reach for the Ashioks there. They seem like they might be a little slow and hard to protect, given that Code Diamonds, I mean, as we saw game 1, has a lot of pressure in the form of the creatures. But that may just speak to how important the graveyard is, both before Loris and for Ren, that you need to reach for a card like Ashiok, and this hand. Too many 3-drops, not enough lands to cast Astrolabe.
Yeah, you oftentimes see the uncastable 1-mana card with the 1 land in hand. It's funny.
Good deck building.
Yeah, exactly. This hand is meh. I mean, I don't think that Spider is loving this hand, but like your opening hand against John doesn't matter that much.
Right,
because
that's the old adage: don't mulligan against Thoughtseize decks, right?
Exactly. It's like you don't want to mulligan too much against John because, as we talked about in the last game, like card advantage, just like the raw amount of cards that you have just matters so much. We immediately see this the Inquisition of Kozilek, which is probably gonna take this Saheeli, I would say. Yeah, this Saheeli probably.
I mean, it depends. If Code Diamonds has access to something like a Dark Confidant, you may see Ko reach for something like the Lightning Bolt.
Good point.
I mean, taking the Seasoned Pyromancer is just pretty bad, given that it has an effect in the graveyard. The best card, I think, for Spider Space in Spider Space's hand is the Jace the Mind Sculptor. So the fact that was an Inquisition over something like a Thoughtseize, I think, definitely mattered there.
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll see what Code Diamond's follow-up is. He may just, typically if you have a Thoughtseize, you lead on the Inquisition first because you're more likely to take a cheaper card, and then follow up with the Thoughtseize later. So even if they had, even if Ko had access to both, he would still cast the Inquisition first. We'll see exactly how Ko's hand plays out here.
Yeah, we see like Mystic Sanctuary, which is, don't get me wrong, it's a great card. It's very, very powerful, but you see the price that we're paying, right?
Tapped Guildgate of Mono Blue ain't doing it for you?
It can be rough. It can be rough sometimes, but he kind of has to, right? Because
there's that follow-up Thoughtseize we were talking about, likely to take this Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, particularly after knowing that Mystic Sanctuary is a second liner, right? So we know that this is
perfect information.
We know that this Season Pyro is at least 2 turns away. So might as well take the vastly more powerful card, or just take it all.
Oh my gosh, just a hand of disruption. Now, I'm interested to see if we'll take Seasoned Pyromancer, because Seasoned Pyromancer's flashback is 5 mana. You see him elect to just take the Thoughtseize, which makes a lot of sense. If you're setting up, you draw any land, Code Diamond's going to have access to Luris, Mishra's Bauble already online. Being able to take the answer to that does make a lot of sense. The Seasoned Pyromancer is very good, though. Now that Spider Space's hand is very empty.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say.
An empty hand, you do draw 2 cards, and that is very impactful in this matchup.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, the Seasoned Pyromancer is actually pretty solid here. With that, having taken the Lightning Bolt, I would expect Code Diamonds to go for Luris here. And he wanted to get rid of the answer immediately, so he can set that up and start bringing back this bubble. But if we have no,
it looks like Diamonds is thinking a little bit. That would seem to me that they don't have an untapped land this turn. If they they may have a land, they may not, but it looks like the pretty easy play. All right, they do.
Okay.
Well, interested to see. I don't think Diamonds knows about the Arid Mesa, but I don't know how much better the spot is getting. Right, like it. Luris is one of the cards that it accumulates value the longer it stays in play. So you want to get it in play as quickly as possible. Ren and 6 is the same way. Exactly. So I don't mind going for Ren here as well. Both of these cards get value the more turns they're in play. And I like Code Diamonds going for a double spell turn here, being able to assemble, a card that gets card advantage like Ren and a little bit of disruption in the form of Nihil Spellbomb here in order to kind of get cards out of his hand and just accumulate value, start double spelling. Jace the Mind Sculptor is
that's
quite
an interesting one. That's super, super interesting. What do we do now?
I imagine
probably
we're
just
going to see
round the
Jace the Mind
Jace.
Sculptor brainstorm, right? Like, you need to start recouping card advantage. You know Lurrus is coming next turn. You need an answer to that. There's a lot of problems on board, and even if your Jace gets answered, you need to start finding answers to kind of the card advantage engines that Code Diamonds is setting up.
Huh. We see a
Fates
plus. Probably playing around Lightning Bolt or... Yeah, because like a Lightning Bolt would just kill the Jace. Yeah, and now Jace... Yeah, okay, so like now he's basically saying to Code Diamonds, like, do you have a trophy or a Master Pulse right now?
Right. That's what I don't super like about this play, actually, is I don't think Lightning Bolt is very good in this matchup. You look at Spider Space's Creature Suite, right? It's Snapcaster Mage, Seasoned Pyromancer, Felidar Guardian. Lightning Bolt does not line up well against any of those. Now, Code Diamonds typically plays stuff like Seal of Fire anyway. I haven't actually, I don't have the list in front of me. I don't know how many Lightning Bolts that Code Diamonds has access to, but typically you see a little bit more like in the direction of Seal of Fires for Lurrus, which would be able to pretty cleanly answer the Jace anyway, right?
Because of the
red
red
minus.
Yeah, so he could play the Seal of Fire and then just minus the Ren. So we're talking about like a dead Jace, just the same.
Looks like 3 gold,
okay.
1 Seal of Fire.
Okay, so this means
Bolt is more likely.
Okay, so that means that Jace is going to untap. So that's pretty big game actually. That's pretty big game. So we're gonna get to draw.
Being able to untap with Jace is always big game, and I think certainly means that Spider Space at least has a chance in this game, despite being down. I mean, you can see 4 cards to 1 right now, and to a Planeswalker and a creature versus just a Planeswalker if you're just like glancing at the battlefield. But Spider Space looked pretty behind in the early turns of this game, and being able to untap with the Jace is always big game for crawling your way back into the game. And there is the Seal of Fire we were talking about.
Beautiful. All right, so Spider Space figure out a way. So now he's gonna need to find something though. So we're gonna see what
land isn't impressive. I think this turn, no matter which way you slice it, probably starts with the Brainstorm, unless you're trying to get value off of this Seasoned Pyromancer by just drawing 2 cards.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like the Seasoned Pyromancer allows you to dig deeper, but it uses up your red mana.
Exactly. So you're less likely to be able to answer this Lurrus, which represents another card, and potential damage to your Jace.
Exactly. So we do see Spider Space actually going for the Brainstorm. There we see it. So he's trying to make sure that he has Lightning Bolt to send out. Okay, so did find Path to Exile.
I think that's a very good draw here.
We're looking good now. He's probably going to have to upkeep Path.
I think you should probably
just main phase Path. Yeah, just main phase the Path and then just like draw the 2 and you put the Cryptic in your hand.
Now, if you're Code Diamonds, do you Seal of Fire? He didn't there, but I think there's consideration to Seal of Fire your own Lurrus. That way you can Kolaghan's Command it back later, especially if you don't super care about the land, which I don't think you do because of Red and 6. The Seal of Fire does pick off the Seasoned Pyromancer here, but I don't know. I think having Lurrus in the graveyard, if you have a Kolaghan's Command, is pretty valuable, and I think not activating the Seal of Fire in your Lurrus represents that you do not have access to a Kolaghan's Command in your hand right now, and we'll see what Spider Space does with that information.
Exactly, although on the other hand, Kolaghan's Command does answer the Jace if we couple it with the Seal of Fire. So maybe if he does have another Seal of Fire or a K command, but you can do that anyway next turn though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about, a lot to consider. We didn't see Code Diamonds think about it too long, so no matter which way it's drawn up, I think Diamonds has made up their mind about it. We'll see what Diamonds has available this turn. 4 cards in hand. You know, a Planeswalker still in play, ticking up, threatening to ult. The Seal of Fire can pretty cleanly take the Seasoned Pyromancer off of the board.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see if there's any kind of pressure for this Jace.
Oh, this has been a sweet comeback, and all because of that Jace.
I mean, cycling a Nihil Spellbomb here, I think, is very much a sign of weakness. I mean, we don't know what Diamond's hand is, but if with 4 cards in hand, the best thing you have going on is, you know, kill the Seasoned Pyromancer, then like cycle it away so you don't get 2 1/1s. I can't imagine the hand is too impressive, and you certainly don't have an answer to the Jace, which means Jace coming back in like like next turn means that Spider will have access to Cryptic plus Sanctuary plus Jace, which allows you to Cryptic every single turn if you choose to, right? Outside of something like a Boil, or that you could kind of instap or something like that.
Exactly, that's what
Diamonds might suddenly be in a lot of trouble. This Cryptic lock with Jace could easily flip this game after such an early lead that Diamonds was managed to put together.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly, I just think that Spider is ahead right now.
Yeah. I mean, Ren on 6 is worse than a Jace on 5, even if you're up 2 cards in hand.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. That was a really, really beautifully navigated by Spider Space. And again, if he had just like immediately brainstorm, he wouldn't have access to his Jace right now.
Yeah, because we saw the Seal of Fire come into play. Seal of Fire plus Ren would have taken care of it. So very disciplined, choosing not to activate it, trying to play around the damage effects instead of trying to get feeling like you're cutting your losses already by just being like, oh, whatever, they probably have the Trophy of the Pulse, I'm just going to brainstorm to get my 2-for-1 or whatever, kind of playing patient, waiting, and like you see him being rewarded with a stream of cards here.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like he was trying to, he knew that he was kind of dead to the worst case scenario, right? So like
exactly, like you can't beat it all.
Exactly. We're just, if they have the Maelstrom Pulse, good. You just extend the hand and you just move on to the next match. But if they don't, though,
we play a game of Magic, which is what
and they didn't.
Here. Yeah,
and they didn't. So now we see that this is a beautifully played game by Spider, and he's getting rewarded for it.
Now, Spider Space still does need to answer this Ren. This Ren is ticking up. If it makes it to ult range, that is an effect powerful enough that may allow Diamonds to kind of flip the coin once again, and once again be advantaged. So Spider Space right now, probably forefront of his mind is thinking how what is my answer to Ren? Because if you just bounce draw or whatever with the Ren, you don't have access to the Sanctuary. You kind of want to be bouncing the Sanctuary to be looping that. So you kind of need a different answer, and you see reaching for the Cryptic on this Kroxa makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
and
there we go.
So bounce. Yeah,
that's the line then. Okay, so
that's
now we
how
are.
Choose the answer to the Ren.
This is just like answering the Kroxa. Now it doesn't even have enough fodder to be recast, and hoping for no Veil of Summer.
Yeah. Oh, you can see that little.
You didn't have it.
Sweat the Veil of Summer, and no red source. This Ren can't even be immediate. Oh, there's the red source. I was gonna say no red source does mean that with the information we had right now, the Ren couldn't be replayed, which would be really good. But even the Ren being replayed, it's so far behind on loyalty. This Jace, combined with other effects, should be able to seal the game pretty quickly before that Ren can kind of threaten ultimate again.
Yeah, I remember that Spider has access to a companion, and KO Diamonds doesn't.
Yeah,
so
that is currently going to matter a lot. I mean, KO Diamonds has already cashed out his companion equity. Spider Space still has a very impactful companion that the more Omen of the Seas, the more Astrolabes that Spider Space draws, the more impactful that card is. And we see now 2 Omens that are good to flicker, Seasoned Pyromancer is good to flicker. We can kind of begin committing things to the board that threaten Yorion to be able to just completely go over the top of everything KO Diamonds has going on right now and just close the door in this game.
Yeah, we seem just pretty close to that actually. We're probably going to see Ashiok here, which is not particularly impactful right now.
I think that Spider's just kind of trying to get equity out of this Seasoned Pyromancer as much as possible. Like discarding an opt to make a 1/1 is a lot better than just casting opt right now, when you already have good sources of card advantage, and it puts you up another card, right? Like you get to draw another card out of the deal. So Seasoned Pyromancer are representing card advantage and committing a little bit more to the board, allowing you to redraw into your Omen of the Seas and have a completely fresh brainstorm next turn. Does make a lot of sense. The Ashiok is a unfortunate product. It's something that does add to the board and does get rid of the Kroxa, and in the face of Ren is impactful, but it's certainly not the most important thing going on the board state. It's just, it's another card it's another piece that added to the table that he can flicker later to get more activations out of.
I mean, the mill plan is not out of the question either.
That's true. We're gonna look at that. 36 cards. I think he's gonna die to other as a byproduct of the game before that happens. But it is possible.
He does have the Yorion to flicker the Ashiok, so. That's a lot of mills. That's a lot of mills.
A lot more activation.
For sure. I think that The death is going to be by a different sword, I think.
I believe that when this game ends, whatever kills Code Diamonds is not what actually ended this game. Jace the Mind Sculptor certainly showing his stripes is why he used to be the best Planeswalker ever printed. Lots of argument around that these days, but Jace the Mind Sculptor still undoubtedly a very powerful card that only scales better as the matchups become more fair and more about card advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, really showing his stripes and every turn brainstorming and clawing Spider Space back into this game.
Yeah, I mean, Code Diamonds is fighting the fight.
But I took one out of Polygon's command, and using the Hill Spellbomb to draw a card and get rid of that Seasoned Pyromancer does allow you to cleanly get rid of that Seasoned Pyromancer. But, I mean, Code Diamonds is still very behind on board. Unless he can start getting some creatures to stick on the table and you know, make this Jace do something other than Brainstorm, he's just going to have so much trouble fighting through the card advantage that Spider Space is getting. And once again, you see it pass back with no creature.
Yeah.
Beldar Guardian can represent 2 Brainstorms in a turn, which is impactful. Like, you know, that's something that can matter a whole lot. I mean, if he doesn't want to do that, he can just get another Omen to the Sea activation. It's kind of debatable what's better, but I believe generally Brainstorm's a little bit better than a preordained effect. But we'll see. We'll see what Spider thinks and the way he sequences. But really, I mean, all lines come up good for Spider, no matter which way this turn plays out, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was about to say. Like, it's a matter of, like, does he still want to be playing around the Lightning Bolt that we were talking about, right? Because
I love this. Using Ashiok to clear the Brainstorm. That's pretty nice.
That's beautiful.
And that's beautiful. Good type play from Spider Space. Typically, you see that done with fetch lands. Having a Planeswalker in play means you don't even need to commit to playing a land. You know, you don't want any more lands anyway. You don't even need to commit to playing a land.
This game.
That's just so much.
Yeah, this game seems pretty much over. In fact, I think that right there was an argument for just putting the land on top and then there's a Healy under it, so you can protect it from a discard spell.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean,
if that even is a mistake, it is a mistake that is very unlikely to matter. As we said,
I'm not saying it's a mistake.
The Jace, the Saheeli is just the thing that kills the opponent. Finally, right?
it just speeds up the process. That's what I'm saying. It's just like It's not like. At this point, Spider can probably just make plays at random and will still end up winning this game.
Yeah, as long as we are squarely into as long as Spider uses their abilities and, you know, doesn't get like boiled or something like right here, like, and even boil would be not enough. Code Diamonds would still need to add to the board. Once again, I've been saying this a lot. What gets you back is playing a creature, pressuring these walkers. You have to get them off the table to begin to have a chance. And the more turns that Diamonds passes back without adding anything meaningful to the board that can remove these planeswalkers, the further and further that Diamonds falls behind.
Yeah, I legit think that Boyle is just terrible right here. Like, it just taps Code Diamonds out, and then he just actually dies to the Saheeli for the
combo. Sure, yeah, he just dies to, what is it? You cast it off Fortress, Mountain, and whatever
Fortress
land
Mountain,
they draw. Okay, sure.
Exactly, that's it. That's all you need.
This is what we were talking about. Boyle, while it is incredibly impactful for a 4-mana card, is very, very impactful in the matchup, isn't even always lights out. Like, you see, even if it got boiled, it wouldn't even disrupt Spider Space at all. As of this turn for going off.
Yeah, I could even see this being the good old Yorion turn. And I can see
you want a Yorion instead of going for lethal?
I think so.
Sure.
I think so, because you're like setting up. You just, if you go for lethal and your opponent does have a Fatal Push, or like I guess a Lightning Bolt would be the card. Fatal Push doesn't do it because they don't have Revolt. But like, how do they beat Yorion?
I mean, the real question is, how do they beat Jace? We haven't even answered that question, right? And
exactly.
There's more coming down. So, I mean, really, this is kind of Spider Space's game to play. And this is why a lot of people like these decks, is you get into this spot where, you know, it's almost unlosable, but you haven't quite won the game. And you get to sit here, you get to look at this Yorion. You're going to draw so many cards, and you're going to do everything that people love about Magic. And I think it's a lot of what people love about this Yorion. Oh, yeah,
so many triggers like here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at all that.
You better stack them up right.
It's just a casual draw 4 and a flicker. Why not?
And the flicker is going to be draw another
just
card.
Another card. Right, exactly. Why not?
I mean,
to
Mad.
Pro Diamonds, I ask you, how long do you wish to continue playing?
That's what I was gonna say. Like, oh wow,
Oh,
we're
flicker the
blinking.
Yorion.
We're blinking the
Woo!
Yorion. Jeez.
That's
Wow.
what I call value.
How can? Wow. I mean, I don't know
Oh,
if I have a respect for Kodamas, or I just have, I don't know what the word is, or if I should just be sad. what is the correct?
This Kolaghan's command, even paired with another burn spell, is coming up a little late, I think. I mean, you look at it, Spider Space with 6 cards in hand to Codiamonds 3. Even if Codiamonds can assemble, a burn spell to get Jace off the table, we're still very, very far behind. And Spider Space has the combo just dialed up in hand for whenever he wants to pull the trigger on that. And there's the creature that he needed to really be pressuring these walkers a little too late, I'm afraid.
Yep. This is rough. This is rough. Look at this. Oh my god. Have we established a loop already? Can we blink Yorion again?
It is a loop in that you can flicker all of these things every turn and draw 4 cards a turn. So I guess that's a loop. I guess technically you're drawing 5 with Jace. Who cares? We're just, how many cards did he have? 10? I don't know. Just, where's the Laboratory Maniac? We'll use that as our win condition. We don't need no stinking combo.
The only thing that makes me sad is that we're gonna have to go to discards,
Oh, that's always the worst.
I know, I hate going to discard.
Well, we could just put a bunch of stuff on the table, like
classic.
We'll put the Teferi on the table. Just flicker more
classic.
Stuff.
Let's lead on the Teferi so we don't lose to a Fatal Push.
Let's place the Healy. Why not? Don't even go for the combo. Why even go for the combo? We'll just plus it.
Just plus.
just do it. Do whatever. All right. Spider Space has had enough fun. Codiamonds has decided, and we are ready to move on to the game 3 here. Blood Moon, you saw, wasn't very effective. By the time Spider Space drew it there, Codiamonds actually had all his basics in place. So you saw him just mill it with Ashiok, which is easy enough to do. But it does make you consider, now that Codiamonds knows about these Blood Moons, is it something you want to just move to your sideboard? Because now Codiamonds is much more likely to respect the card out of your deck, even though you are an 80-card deck.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, are there any of the other cards better?
Exactly.
I am slightly inclined to actually have the Force of Negation because of the Boil specifically.
Sure.
But maybe that's wrong on my part.
No, I certainly think that's a good argument. I mean, Boil is a card that should be in Spider Spice's mind. Force Negation does line up a little awkwardly with Boil being an instant. You're kind of required to hold up a lot of mana out of a deck that wants to tap out a lot. You have, a lot of main phase value effects, things like Narsets, Seasoned Pyromancers, Jaces, Planeswalkers, stuff like that. But you're looking into the main phase. It makes holding up the Force Negation a little bit harder, to where you're still kind of susceptible to Boil just on the instep. But once again, that does also require the Jund deck to hold up all 4 mana. So, if they're not moving, you can be like, hey, maybe something's up, and you may get in this holding pattern. It would be a little interesting to play out. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing access to a Force Negation or 2, just to have something that, you can be like, hey, this is for that card, and I want one in my deck, to where if I'm drawing a bunch of cards with Yorion and stuff like that, tapping out every turn, it's a free answer that I can answer on their turn, right? That I can use on that.
For sure. Another thing that worries me on the draw is turn 2 Renin 6, right? We literally have we don't have access to Celestial Purge. We don't have access to literally any answers at all to a Resolve Ren besides double Lightning Bolt or like bouncing it with Cryptic Command. So, being on the draw and kind of just really struggling against a Resolve turn 2 Ren, that's another reason that kind of makes me want to consider Force of Negation a little bit more. But, it's like one of those things that, happens in Legacy, which, you kind of just like cyborg your forces out in the
in the fair matchups in order to not get 2-1. Exactly. I mean,
maybe it's one of those things.
What it's worth, when Ren was around in the Legacy format, a lot of people argued for keeping Force in for that exact reason. You needed to win the fights over Ren, and even if you're forcing in the mirror, Ren just did such a good job going over the top with the card advantage paired with brainstorm effects, that, like, because obviously Ren with grabbing fetch lands isn't exciting once you have all your lands in play or whatever, but being able to put them back off a Brainstorm was very, very meaningful and turned those lands into real cards. We see here the play pattern's a little different in Modern. We don't have any Brainstorm effects. And as a result, I mean, Wrenn and 6 is undoubtedly very good in this matchup, but Spider Space did a good job with cards like Jace the Mind Sculptor and just other value engines like the Felidar Yorion, which are a little more expensive to set up, just kind of invalidating the Wrenn's card advantage. He was just like, all right, cool, you can draw your land every turn. I'm going to draw 4 cards a turn. He did it a lot slower. He had to kind of answer the board, and it did involve untapping with Jace the Mind Sculptor, but that was kind of Spider Space's plan to beat the turn 3 Wrenn last game was I'm just going to make it not matter. It's going to matter in the early games, but if I don't get punked out during that time frame, I'm eventually going to go over the top of it with cards. And we got to see that happen where Spider Space just looked like he was losing, flip the coin, wins the game.
Yeah, exactly. And we see a couple of very interesting things here. First of all, Code Diamond saw the hand and he snapped off the opt, hoping to make it so Spider actually gets stuck on lands. Of course, he didn't consider the fact that Spider is a luck sack, and he immediately found
hard to play around the lucky opponent. Very hard. Can't ever do it.
Not only that, but he also fetched for the Snow Mountain, right? Meaning that he's playing around choke from turn number 1.
Yeah,
right?
I like this. With Glacial Fortress, you can present a lot of respect for the choke boil effects, right? Like those island cards that normally look very, very good against your deck, you can kind of more or less not invalidate them, but really, really neuter their impactfulness to the board and still play Magic, not just be dead on sight.
Exactly.
This being able to lightning bolt this Hex Drinker is really, really attractive for Spider because given another turn, he's not going to be able to do that. But Level Up being a sorcery, he can wait on it as long as he wants. No, Veil of Summer does not stop lightning bolt, so there is very little punishment with open deck lists. And if Code Diamonds is willing to sink a little bit more mana into it, then Spider Space is very excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And we see Code Diamonds is like, yeah, now I have my 2/1.
Yeah,
I'm just attacking you with my 2/1.
He could also level up second main. That way, even if he does commit the mana, he's still got damage out of the card. I don't think we'll see that with Mishra's Baubles sitting in the graveyard. I think we're much more likely to see a card like Lurrus. And Lurrus would eat the Lightning Bolt, of course, but it does actually require action from Spider Space.
This pass from Code Diamonds probably just means Kolaghan's Command, and we see
Teferi. Because Teferi is very good against Kolaghan's Command.
Exactly. So Teferi is the perfect card to play around what Code Diamonds what Spider thinks that Code Diamonds has in hand, and just very easy, just minus on the Hex Drinker. Basically time walk Code Diamonds. And then we move on to the next.
Leave a Planeswalker in play, right? Even with Kolaghan's Command being able to be a 2-for-1, you can kind of kill the Teferi and make Spider Space discard. He's still got a card out of it by being able to pick up the Hex Drinker. Still got tempo advantage out of it. Now Teferi does represent the only non-instant answer that Spider Space has to the Hex Drinker right now, but this timely reinforcement you see in Spider Space's hand, if the Hex Drinker is redeployed and Code Diamond spends his turn just leveling it up to where it can't be hit by instants, then I think we're very likely to see Spider just be like, okay, cool, here's 3 blockers. I'm just going to chop it for a few turns so I can bounce it with Teferi again, and you can take as much mana as you want.
Exactly. That's pretty funny, actually. He can even instant speed this time with Forfeits, which is super cute.
Yeah. Very, very sweet.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we see that Spider is kind of chilling over there, it's just taking them as they come and actually maneuvering through this game beautifully.
Something that I've noticed about this matchup, the way it's played out, is that a lot of it seems like Code Diamond's role in this matchup is to kind of get under Spider Space with the card advantage. You see all of the card advantage sources from Code Diamonds are much more mana efficient. Things like Lurrus, things like Dark Confidant, things like Wrenn and 6. All of that represent a lot of mana efficiency. So you kind of want to spend your time either getting under Spider Space with either card advantage or aggression. Because as we saw in game 2, if the game goes late, Spider Space's deck is very very clunky, but all very, very powerful. And if you let him get into that late game and start doing these things, nasty things like Yorion chains and flickering all kinds of stuff, playing expensive planeswalkers, you're going to find yourself drowned very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's going to take over. It's going to take over for sure. Like Kodaimus doesn't have enough staying power, even with Lurrus, because Spider's card advantage just goes so over the top. Probably what we'll see here is timely at instant speed. That seems like the most obvious line. Hexdrinker can go up to become mini Progenitus if
there's an untapped land, it looks like, right? Yeah, because you need 5 more counters. It does run a risk, but I actually would kind of like it because
it seems like, honestly, it's his only line if he has access to that.
Yeah, it is a little risky when you're sharing an opponent that has 6 cards in hand, being like, all right, I'm going to shove all 5 of my mana into my creature. If there's a removal spell, it's disaster. It's probably game over on the spot, to be honest. But it might be his only out. Like, Spider Space's hand is powerful with Yorion on the horizon as well, looking very good with these Omen of the Seas effects and stuff like that. It's very hard. It's very hard for you to kind of claw back. So you're right. It may be just that's kind of that's Kodaimon's only line to kind of continuing to get under Spider Space is being like, all right, I'm going to take all my mana into making a Progenitus to try to make up for lost time. And if you have an answer to it, I probably wasn't winning this game anyway because you were just going to answer my threat no matter what eventually, right? So yeah, I do kind of like...
It's one of those things that, you can have to... And I mean, apparently Kodaimus didn't have the land, and that is probably the issue. But, if you think about it, there's not that many answers because the Hexdrinker already has protection from instants. So there's not that many ways that Spider could have killed the Hexdrinker in response to the level up. So
there's not a whole lot. It's like, you could maybe Cryptic Tap. I don't see any sorcery speed effects. I mean, it would have to be something like double Anger the Gods or something insane. It doesn't look like there's actually a whole lot here at all. So that does make me believe that you are correct, and it is much more likely that Kodaimus doesn't actually even have an untapped land to make the Progenitus here, because I'm not actually sure there's anything with these open deck lists that Kodaimus would see and be like, all right, this could blow me out. When it has protection from instants, there's just, there's no sweepers. There's no sorcery speed removal spells. There's nothing, even with the Teferi. There's nothing to really play around making it like getting your creature removed. So
yeah, this makes me think that it's simply a fact that Kodaimus just didn't have the card, and we see him leveling up right now, right? So clearly we figured that out. Look at that, taking damage from the Nurturing Peatland. Beautiful. So Spider doesn't gain life from the Timely. So hot.
Do you gain life if you're tied? I don't even know.
No, you don't.
But it's insane. It's just good deck building.
But he's been taking damage all along, playing around that Timely that he didn't know about.
I really like Kodaimon's not like playing Inquisition before leveling up, just kind of clearing the way, making sure there's like no kind of Teferi action or anything silly that like they need to be worried about. If you looked at a hand that was all Teferis, and oh my god, it's just that easy. It's just that easy. You want to clear the way for Teferi, that way you can have your Progenitus online next turn, but the in-step preordain effect from Omen of the Sea is going to find another Teferi immediately, and that is kind of just takes all the winds out of the sails. And Kodaimon's untapping for yet another turn with no permanents in play to pressure Spider Space means that Kodaimon's going to have a hard time crawling his way back into this one.
Yeah, I think that is probably the nail in the coffin, I would imagine. Like Kodaimus was really banking on that Hexdrinker over there. He was only a land drop away from it, but did I talk about him not playing around the Spider being a luck sack? He's going to learn from that for the next one.
Punished once again by Spider being a luck sack. Very, very hard to play around.
Gotta play around that,
You see him kind of setting up once again to try to make the Progenitus next turn, and here comes the blowout path to exile, and that's just gross.
That's just brutal. But I don't think that Kodaimus could have done anything about it this time around.
Yeah, I like the play.
He couldn't do anything last turn either. He just didn't have the land. So
exactly. He even cleared the way with Inquisition to not get punished by Teferi, and Kodaimus did, I think, the best possible chance with what he had to work with, trying to claw his way back in the game and get that punk out with that Progenitus effect. But at this point now, Spider untapping with Yori and mana, multiple things that draw cards, so to where, Code Diamond still has no creature in play, which I said is like the big sign that Code Diamonds is losing. If Code Diamonds has like no permanents that are like pressuring Spider at all in play, he's in a really bad spot. And this undoubtedly is a bad spot. We're going to see draw 4 cards here. And
it's Yorion time.
Oh yeah, it's value time. This is why players show up. You reach this point in the game where you've answered everything on Code Diamond's boards. These Teferis came on time, and now you have that Yorion to just slam the door shut. Look at him; he's real pleased with himself.
He's having a good time. We know that.
Together. He's doing what all Magic players love. He's drawing cards. He's putting big 4/5s into play, flickering the Planeswalker because why not? Just living his best life, truly. Moving to discarding a land. You don't need extra lands.
Oh man. To be fair, that the discard step is kind of bittersweet at this point,
Yeah,
it's
not,
late in the game. You're like, I have all of these cards. Well, I guess I'm gonna discard this one. Sure.
Yes, I don't know. Just shuffle it and pick one off the top. Who cares?
Man.
I mean, this is. I think this is a good showing for kind of this new, more aggressively slanted, because you have to be, right? Like, Jund can't play cards like Liliana of the Veil anymore. They can't play cards like Bloodbraid Elf anymore. You don't have as much of this, like, late-game staying power outside of the card Lurrus, which Code Diamonds does still have access to. Mm-hmm. You don't have that baked into your deck anymore. So your deck is a lot leaner, meaner, lower to the ground, which means you do need to do a lot more getting under people. That's what we've kind of talked about all game. You need to be playing these efficient sources of card advantage to where they get in play early, they run longer, right? Like just leaving a Dark Confidant in play, having it on play turn 2, it's going to start drawing cards faster than any of the engines Spider Space has access to. That way you can kind of fight Spider Space on his own axis, but you need to do it earlier because your cards are slower at getting card advantage instead of something like Yorion, which is immediately a draw for, right? Mm-hmm. And we see that's Code Diamonds tried his hardest with a card like Hexdrinker to kind of really, really get under Spider Space. Spider Space did a very good job kind of stifling that entire advancement and sealing the game with this Yorion. I expect we're not going to be playing for too terribly much longer from here.
Yeah. One thing that I was going to point out there is Code Diamonds knows about the Ashioks. So I don't think I like the insta drawing with the bubble. Because, I mean, of course, I was going to say something and then, immediately Spider draws the Path to Exile that kills the Lurrus. But because I was going to say, because the Ashiok can actually exile the Mishra's Bubble, right? Which is basically the way that
one of the ways to get back in this game.
Exactly.
You see 3 baubles in the yard, right? Like that's a significant portion of your Mishra's Baubles, and like assembling the engine again is going to be very difficult. But as you can see, I mean, Spider Space just has all the options.
Yeah, we are again past the point of no return for Code Diamonds.
Even a card like Boil, which may have been good enough like 2 or 3 turns ago, is just no longer even an option. Yeah,
we're a little bit too far behind now, and he can get a little bit of value with this, but now Spider can slam the Ashiok and just minus on him, and like Lurrus doesn't even do anything. Lurrus can come down and just be sad. Yep. There's no way for Code Diamonds to accrue value with.
Well, Lurrus at this point is also just exiled too, and with Lurrus disallowing you from putting the rest of the Lurruses in the deck, there's no more Lurrus to even worry about at all. And
he bounced the Lurrus with the Teferi minus.
Oh, he bounced it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that particular. The path is still in hand. I'm sorry, I missed that activation. Yeah. There's a lot going on in this battlefield. I apologize.
No, don't worry about it. But
you found a different way to invalidate the Lurrus.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. This is
once again, Code Diamonds. I ask you, how long do you wish to endure?
Yeah. The funniest part is only 5 lands versus 7.
Right. Well, I mean, when you have all the riches, drawing all the cards each turn, hitting your land drops becomes a completely trivial issue.
No, the worst, even if Code Diamonds had another Hexdrinker, can't even Progenitus it up. So sad. Also, he's just dead, right?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I see 4 go to 3. I don't see any lightning helix effects at the moment. He can go deep for 1, but I don't see lethal right now.
Yeah, I mean that's why he exiled the Nihil Spellbomb. It's because because Spider was trying to get back the Lightning Bolt, but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that lightning bolt is not currently on top. He needs to find something like a bolt or helix effect, and have Code Diamonds actually tap the Nurturing Peatland. There's the boil, which we just talked about. Would have been good enough probably 2 or 3 turns ago, but even shoring up the lands here and removing the Jace, so you still have this 4/5 in play, which threatens a 2-turn lethal. You still have 2 Planeswalkers in play. You still have 8 cards in hand, right? Like there's just still so much going for Spider Space, despite having 4 of his lands thrown in the graveyard from one spell, that it's just not quite enough. It's a little late, but
not even a big deal. Not even a big deal. He even has more Glacial Fortresses in hand, so
yeah. Glacial Fortress, Plains, Astrolabes for all the blue mana. He could cast Cryptic Command right now underneath after the foiled. Like it's just once again, it's a little too late.
Yeah. Do those cards do anything? The 4th Astrolabe. I love how Spider is still stopping and figuring out, okay, do I want this card here? How can I get the most value from my card?
People mess up a lot in Paper. When you enter this time where you are so vastly far ahead that your decisions do not particularly matter, a lot of players end up getting draws where they otherwise wouldn't need one, but because they try to maximize every inch. Once you're so very far ahead that you're sub like 5% or whatever to lose, whatever arbitrary number you want to come up with in your hand, whenever you're very comfortable that you can win this game, basically no matter what sequence of spells come off the top of your opponent's deck, you can make decisions a lot quicker and loose just to conserve clock. On Moto, your clock's a little longer. He's already ahead on clock, so he can afford to. But as I think that's an important thing to talk about when you're looking at this online match versus how somebody would play in Paper, is if this was a shared clock, I think you would see Spider Space a lot more worried about wrapping this game up and not so much worried about, is the Saheeli going to be what's going to deal the last few points, or am I going to look for something else? You know, like it is worth considering, and in an ideal space where you can make every decision optimally as quickly as possible and like quick enough to finish matches, it is a good idea to play optimally. But I think there's a lot of spots where players end up like playing too slowly and not actually playing to finish the match, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lightning bolt in hand, should finish up the game.
Easy.
Time very far from relevant in this
particular
match. Thumbs up. He got to do everything he wanted to do. He wanted to draw. He wanted to flicker stuff. He wanted to color his players relevant permanents, and he did so very well. And I'm disappearing off the screen. Bye, everybody.
Oh, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. Drake, where are you?
He's disappearing.
Help! Somebody
He's
help
shrinking
me!
and he's growing.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh,
All right.
I'm very large now. Look, I'm over
There you are.
Hey, Drake. How's
and
it
I'm
going?
back. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. That was a great match. It was a long affair, a lot of back and forth, but in the end, the bigger, badder deck takes over the new hotness, which is
Turns out
pretty interesting.
When decks are playing smaller, sometimes going bigger gets you a huge edge in those matchups, which is what you guys are kind of talking about for a little bit. I think a key part there was that KO Diamonds could not beat the top of Spider Space's deck because
certainly Spider Space had some good draw steps in the process.
Absolutely,
That's very,
that when he had exactly Teferi in Path, he did have a Scry too, but he had exactly Teferi in Path to deal with the Hex Drinker when KO Diamonds had just checked with an Inquisition and saw neither of those.
Oh, Big Drake is the highlight of this match.
Skype wants more Drake personality.
Skype's probably freaking out. No, you're very right. And that dynamic feels a lot like what the Tron, like Jund, like you want to talk about traditional modern matchups, something like Tron versus Jund, which is a matchup, tale as old as time, tale as old as the format. It plays out very similarly, right? Where like if Jund can stick like an early Dark Confidant, interact a little bit with the lands, make Tron play fair, make them cast their cards for expensive mana, they can kind of get under them with like Tarmogoyf Store Aggression, Dark Confidant to keep the cards running, keep the interaction running. Jund can actually keep up with Tron on card advantage, but it requires you to be able to, get under them, get to the board early, and also find interactive pieces that matter. And I imagine that matchup plays out very similarly, right? Where the Jund deck needs to get on the board early and then needs to find those interactive pieces, but instead of for lands, they're for planeswalkers, right? Because that's how that Yorion deck is accruing value turn after turn, is these strew of planeswalkers with the threat of Yorion dialed up. I wouldn't even be surprised if a lot of times it's correct to use the destroy artifact mode of Kolaghan's command to pick off stray astrolabes, both to mess up the mana a little bit, make your boils more effective, but also to neuter a little bit of the impact that Yorion is going to have when it inevitably comes down, right?
Exactly, and that's like probably like the big part, and it's funny because it kind of the converted mana cost of the cards even kind of like tell you the story a little bit, right? Like Lurrus is all about early, right? You want to cast it early. All your cards are going to be 2 mana or less. So just by definition, it forces you into a game plan. Yorion is the opposite. Like you want to play to the board. You want to get value from your 5 mana blink everything card. Yep. And it's kind of like the cards build the decks around them for you, and they kind of dictate how the match is going to play out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we definitely saw that kind of traditional dynamic. Even though both new deck lists both involve companions, I think we got to see a lot of Magic fundamentals when it comes to this format, and it comes to a kind of rock, paper, scissors style Magic. We got to see all of that play out in front of you. Even though there's new faces on each of the cards, it's still a lot of the same dynamic we've seen in Magic for since its conception. So I really think that was a good testament to what matters when you're talking about a mid-range deck and a bigger mid-range deck, the deck that's trying to go over the top of you, and how exactly that matchup plays out.
It all comes down to, at the end of the day, who's the beatdown, and the inevitability goes to the Orion deck. Just gonna say that right, the Orion deck.
Damn.
The inevitability goes to the deck that can pay 5 mana to get a 4 or 5 flyer that doesn't die to anything but Trophy or Pulse. I mean, there's no Liliana of the Veil Edicts anymore. Bolts doesn't really line up well against a 4 or 5 that plays like a Niv Mizzet because it's drawing you 4 or 5 cards, exactly what Niv Mizzet does, without having to cost 5 colors of mana. Jund can't compete with that. Jund, I played a lot with the Jund Lurrus decks, and going Dark Confidant, like turn 2 Dark Confidant to turn 3 Lurrus with the Bauble and drawing like 3 cards a turn. I'm like, yes. But that can't compete with all of a sudden being like, oh no, I have a giant flying threat, and I just drew like 6 cards all at once. It just going bigger is absolutely a strategy in this particular format.
Yep, for sure.
Next up,
we see.
Oh, go on.
No, I was going to say that we see Spider Space using that strategy in order to advance to the next round.
And we will see that in the brackets in just a moment. Next match up, we are half done. Next match up is K-Ponce versus Archon TV. I'm pretty excited about that matchup. That'll be match number 3 of the Modern Streamers League. Coming up next.
All right.
Oh.
My camera is a little bit off, but we'll fix that real quick. There we go.
I'm in frame.
It's time. It's time for round number 3. Then we have K-Pons. This is Kevin that you see right here on stream, which is actually who we are going to be watching from this perspective of, and we're playing against Ingratis, which is Dylan Hen.
Yes, Dylan Hen. He's a friend of mine and fellow Team Nova member. Grinds the SCG Tour a bunch. Very good friend of mine. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see him. I hate to say that I'm a little biased in this match, but I certainly am. But we are watching from the position of K-Ponce. Looks like he's playing an Eldrazi and Traxxas strategy versus Ingrathis playing some sort of Giganta strategy. Is that just a humans deck? I know Dylan Hen is very well known for playing humans. Has a lot of success in the SCG Tour with humans. I do not know if he registered any other Giganta decks.
Yeah, and Kevin is actually very well known for playing Texas.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Two masters of their craft.
Exactly. All sorts of Texas variant is K-Ponce's specialty. So we see both players doing what they're good at, which is a great thing.
Certainly. And I'm sure there's plenty of Aether Vial triggers to go around, a lot of play to this matchup in particular when it comes to Aether Vials and timing on stuff. I'm really interested to see some of those little interactions come up. Hopefully we get to see a game where both players have an Aether Vial and we have a nice competitive game where we get to kind of see all that play out and really see kind of both masters put to the test. Exactly.
We see a medium hand, I want to say, for Kevin. He did bottom the what's the name of that card? Because that's a new card. It's like a hate bear. Kunoros. There you go.
Kunoros. Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Kunoros. Sure, we'll go with that.
I have no idea.
The Grafdigger's Cage on big legs.
Exactly. It's a 3/3 Vigilance lifelink, I think, and it's a Grafdigger's Cage effect. So
it also has
very easy bottom. Oh, Menace, interesting.
And also Vigilance and lifelink. 3 heads, 3 abilities. Can't you read Questing Beast? Come on.
Yeah, and also it's completely uncastable with Kevin's mana
with these sweet colorless lands. Secretly, a 3-color deck is Eldrazi and Taxes, given that the Eldrazi require colorless mana, and we get to see missing one of the colors here. Meddling Mage coming down does not have a companion to name. I know that was a big reason why I think Dylan was very excited to play humans in this new companion metagame, is that Meddling Mage gets a lot more stock when you can just name the most powerful card in somebody's deck that's just, they're always going to have access to it, right?
Exactly.
Like, Meddling Mage gets a lot better in that position, and when there's no companion to name, you still have open deck lists. You can still certainly name a card that you know is in their deck, but you're not necessarily guaranteed to get value over the course of the game. You still have to make some blind calls if you don't have something like a Kitesail Freebooter.
Exactly, unless you're playing against me and I'm probably going to be playing Amulet and you just name Primeval Titan and you beat me. It's pretty easy.
Skull was the name? That's very fair. That's very fair.
That's actually something that happened on turn number 2 that I wanted to comment on. Kevin led on Plains, and when Kevin saw the Meddling Mage on the stack, immediately snapped off the Path to Exile on the champion that was already in play. And that is because he assumes that Dylan is going to name Path to Exile. So that's why we saw that line happen right there. And then after the Path to Exile was already used, then Dylan changed what he was naming to Tidehunter Scholar. So a little bit of some mind games going on right away, thanks to Meddling Mage, of course. And here we see a second Arbiter.
So we have access to 2 Strip Mine effects here with 2 Ghost Quarters. You can see him taking out the Horizon Canopy first, the land that gets a little bit more value. Interested to see K-Ponce going after the Horizon Canopy, even though there are Ancient Ziggurats in play. It seems like, especially with it behind on board, one of the more impactful plays that Dylan has access to is something like this. And if you were to fire off a Ghost Quarter on an Ancient Ziggurat, Dylan would have access to only 2 white sources and would be unable to cast a Mantis Rider. Now, you see Dylan doesn't actually have one, but has the next best thing, crack Horizon Canopy into a good 2-drop. And I think K-Ponce is already done.
That's
just
brutal.
already too far behind
he
on
knows.
board.
he knows that things did not really line up well for him, and he had a lot of dead cards already on a mulligan. So I honestly don't really fault him for that scoop there. It makes sense, especially after the classic Path to Exile into.
I was going to mention that the Leonard, that good deck building synergy right there. That's never what you want to do. You obviously want to play the pass after Leonard Arbor is already in play, but he felt pressure to because of the Medley Mage, which is something that you smartly commented on.
Exactly. So the Medley Mage is definitely like the first thing that pops to mind is going to be Path to Exile 100% of the time. So it's not strange for Kevin to assume that's gonna be what's gonna happen. We see him cutting the Thalias and bringing in Plague Engineer, All-Star, absolutely devastating.
Plague Engineer's a good one, right? Is against tribal decks. Is that one effective?
It's pretty good. I hear. Okay. We also see him bringing in some pushes, of course, diversifying your removal, definitely a great strategy, and just immediately cutting the Thalias and some number of Looting Arbiters, which makes sense to me. Those cards are just terrible in this matchup. They play no spells.
Yeah, they play Aether Vial, but yeah, in general, Thalia is going to be your weakest card. The 2/1 First Striker doesn't really battle well on the ground. A lot of humans creatures are going to pretty easily outsize yours because they have access to the Lord effects. So you need to beat them on the axis that you're better at, which is playing an interactive game and kind of beating them with your own synergies, which involve the ETB triggers, the displacers, and like the flicker wisps. Kind of like they have the tribal synergy, you have the like blinking synergies, and you're going to kind of crash those into each other. And I guess see who comes out on top. Game 1, we saw go to Dylan Hand. We got to see multiple Lord effects come down and pretty quickly overwhelm the Eldrazi and Taxes deck. We'll see if Capons can tie up the series here. Leading on Eldrazi Temple gives yourself an out to draw a second Eldrazi Temple for a turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer, so pretty heads-up play there.
Exactly, and also the fact that he doesn't have a Scholar and he doesn't have a second color source, so even if he does throw the Skull like he did, he still wouldn't be able to cast it. So
if you really wanted to cast it, you could cast it off the old Ghost Quarter, but I think Eldrazi Displacer on turn 2, still above rate, still accelerating your curve, playing a 3-drop at turn 2. I think Capons is still pretty happy with his position, although Dylan Hand being able to lead on an Aether Vial here where Capons doesn't have access to an Aether Vial. We see that happen a lot in these creature style mirrors, and the Aether Vial is, often quoted as one of the most powerful things these decks are doing. I think that Dylan, despite being behind here, because he's on the draw, Capons has gotten a mana acceleration in the form of Eldrazi Temple. He's going to be able to play a Thought-Knot Seer if he chooses to do that this turn. Dylan can kind of keep up with that at the very least, if not is ahead with the Aether Vial. We don't know the contents of his hand, those 5 cards. We don't know what they look like, but certainly as far as having access to the mana to deploy his threats, he's doing a very good job keeping up with Capons here.
Yeah, exactly, and it's also a pretty big deal in terms of the Aether Vial. It just allows you to catch up, right? Like that's what the card does. It just gives you a boost of mana over multiple turns that even if your opponent is a little bit ahead, hopefully should be enough to help Dylan catch up. And we're going to get the information right now. What are we looking at? Mantis Rider, Double Phantasmal Image, and Thalia's Lieutenant. What would you take from here?
It's a powerful hand. I'm inclined to take the Mantis Rider, given that it is one of the best threats in that it flies. Capons does not deal with flyers very well. And you're looking at Dylan Hand having access to a double Mantis Rider next turn, so he can start getting the beatdowns with that. And then the following turn, he could do all kinds of tricks with the second Phantasmal Image and the Lord effects, right? Thalia's Lieutenant being able to grow the two Mantis Riders already in play, and then you can either grow them again or make another one, whatever you choose to do. And there's very little that Capons can kind of do to mitigate specifically the Mantis Rider. A lot of his plays are very, very mana inefficient. He doesn't have any of those 1-mana removal spells already. And specifically, Eldrazi Displacer is very, very good against Phantasmal Image.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Sack it. So you want to kind of keep yourself from getting punked out. Pad your life total and let your synergies with Displacer and Thought-Knot Seer win you this game. And so we see Capons tank on it, pretty quickly take Mantis Rider. Dylan takes his next turn, follows up with a copy of Thought-Knot Seer. Not that often you see Image copy your opponent's creatures, but this is certainly one of the matchups I've copied multiple things. Both Eldrazi Displacer and Thought-Knot Seer have been targets of mine in the past.
Yep. Again, speaking from the Amulet player, it feels really bad for when Phantasmal Image copies your Hornet Queen.
Oh,
Sad.
yeah.
It's
I love
sad
that.
times.
Love that interaction.
It's sad times, let me tell you.
There's actually an SCG match in the first Open that Will Polium won back when he was on Nova as well. He won with Amulet, and it was kind of one of his really big breakout tournaments. He'd had a few other top eights, but he got a solo trophy with Amulet. And there's a turn where I'm like setting up to have lethal over the course of 2 turns after like working through all his cards, and he just top decks Hornet Queen off the top, and it's just like, that's a good one, plays it, and the commentary's like, well, that's one of the best possible. I definitely have experience on the human side of being Hornet Queen, and it doesn't feel good.
Yep, Hornet Queen is fallen out of favor, unfortunately, but always a good time. Always a good time when the Queen shows up.
The blink activated pretty quick. A good play, trading 3 mana to remove a creature off the board and draw a card is a pretty attractive play for sure. Let you get in for 7 damage here if Dylan does not elect to use the second image to copy Thought-Knot Seer again and kind of offer a trade. I expect that's very likely what we're going to see here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Cape has this Path to Exile dialed up.
Yeah, he's just trying to make sure that he can stay ahead on tempo, right? This Thalia's Lieutenant is not going to do anything, and as long as he can keep the pressure up, and it basically gives Dylan the least amount of time possible to find the cards that really matter. Like, we already know that one of their draw step was the Unclaimed Territory, so right now, actually, Kevin has perfect information, and he knows that the current cards in Dylan's hand is not beating his board. So
you see Dylan. Dylan agrees, going ahead and cycling that Horizon Canopy, looking for something that plays to this board. I believe something like Reflector Mage is a card Dylan is pretty attracted to, being able to take something off the board and keep it off the board for 2 turns. You could even pair it with Meddling Mage, as you see here. You could. This is going to be an interesting name. It names Leonin Arbiter, which to me signals he doesn't have the Reflector Mage, because you would definitely want to name one of the creatures in play, because they're a lot better than Leonin Arbiter here.
Exactly, but like he knew about the Leonin Arbiter, however, because of the Thought-Knot Seer trigger from the Phantasmal Image, so that's why he named the card that he knew that his opponent had.
He knew about, instead of something in play like if he had like a Reflector Mage. Well, also, like, the Leonin Arbiter does kind of matter, right? It would, like, with this third Ghost Rider, it would represent strip mining all of his lands and cut him off of playing anything other than 1 CMC of cards. Dylan, very behind on board, even behind on cards. This Aether Vial did a good job keeping him in this game, but these Phantasmal Images lined up so poorly against the removal that Capon's had and Displacer that I think it's going to be really hard for Dylan to claw back into this game.
Yeah, the story of this game was basically Capon's having one of his 4 Displacers, and then just Dylan drawing 2 of his Phantasmal Images. Of course, that the Displacer is probably like the single best card in the matchup. So it's not very surprising for that to be the case. And we see, I love the Vial trick when humans pull the Vial.
All his tenant. Look at this trick. How about flicker my Thought-Knot Seer in response to your Vial activation, and Dylan doesn't even want to take the draw. Not even worth this time.
Wow. In response to your Vial trick, I will trick you back.
Oh, nice. Yeah. See, this is the kind of magic we signed up to see. Game 1 was a little unfortunate that Capon's got ran over. We got to see a little bit of the little tricksy stuff going on there. You can see Capon's pondering a little bit of Stony Silence. I can't imagine he's going to reach for that, especially with his own Aether Vials.
It's a little bit questionable.
But
hey, I don't know. Maybe that's like the most important card in the matchup or something? I don't know.
A card like Kunaros is still in your deck. Do you think Kunaros is just a better body than Thalia? Because like both of their lines of text don't particularly matter, right? Like one is this Vigilance, Menace, Lifelinking 3/3 with irrelevant text. The other one's a 2/1 first strike with irrelevant text.
Well,
do you think there's any merit to splitting those, or?
I mean, contrary to something like Humans, right? Humans has a lot of Lord effects, right? So we have Thalia's Lieutenant, we have the brand new printed card, general something, and then you can actually turn your Thalia into a 3/3, into a 3/2 first striker, or a 4/3 first striker. Kevin just does not have access to that kind of effect, right? So Thalia is always going to be a 2/1 and is going to get outsized very quickly. Kunaros at least has the potential of helping him race thanks to the lifelink ability. So I would imagine that's why he is favoring the Hound over the Human.
Makes a lot of sense. A 6-point life swing for 3 does seem like a much better rate than a 2-point life swing for 2. So if you're looking for stats per mana paid, Kunaros certainly is a better rate, I think, and would definitely support the Death and Taxes master decision here. Master's decision. So many S's.
Interesting hand that Kevin is met with over here. It chooses to keep. Okay, so
Dylan mulled the 5, so I don't know if that helps or hurts K-Ponce's chances, but definitely K-Ponce needs to draw some lands to make this hand work. But he has Charming Prince to kind of help make that happen.
Yeah, I imagine that's what he's banking on. Like, we can push our opponent's first play here, and then we can Charming Prince to kind of dig ourselves towards some lands. Okay, he doesn't want to risk it.
Yeah, I mean it feels a little overly conservative to me. Unless you know somehow that there's a Fatal Push in K-Ponce's hand, it's still more likely to be a Path to Exile. So like the train of thought that would get you to like naming Fatal Push would be something like, I don't care if he Path to Exiles my creature. I do care if he Fatal Pushes it. I'm going to name Fatal Push. But you see, I trust K-Ponce's decision. He's proven himself to be a very, very competent pilot. So he once again does not want to risk it. Eldrazi Temple on top is probably one of the better lands he could possibly see off this Scry effect. Being able to turn on Thought-Knot Seers as early as next turn. He's going to top the Path to Exile as well. Those are, look at thumbs up from K-Ponce. He likes those cards.
Oh, because the Metal Mage name Eldrazi Displacer. There you go. That explains it.
Yeah, that is correct.
A
good name. Certainly one of the more impactful cards. You see a Displacer stranded in K-Ponce's hand, but the stream of Thought-Knot Seers are going to start coming down. Dylan hand, 2 cards left in hand on his mulligan. Missed a land drop, played Aether Vial instead. Really not on time. I think we're going to see this one begin to slip away from Dylan. I mean, it's all because this Charming Prince did a good job of setting up K-Ponce's hand. He had to setting up his draws to find lands, and this Thought-Knot Seer going to take him off the Mantis Rider that he could have cast otherwise.
Wow, yeah, that was gonna say, like, he was risking. Oh no, he actually took the Mantis. No, yeah, the Mantis Rider is in his hand. Wow, he might get punished here if he had taken the Mantis.
He didn't want the Thought-Knot copied because he was just going to use the second Thought-Knot to copy it. It still does run the risk of getting your what's it called? Getting your. Okay, I'm gonna get there.
Take your time, Drake.
I just got my thing completely derailed.
Yeah, he does know about the path that he has on top for sure.
That's true.
Offering the trade here.
Yeah, this is an interesting trade as well. I mean, you both draw a card. K-Ponce is ahead, both on mana and on cards already, so I imagine trading cards 1-for-1 still does favor him, but K-Ponce is still not in the 2-spell-a-turn territory yet.
Yeah, that's certainly interesting. Okay, so that
but Dylan's hand certainly isn't powerful enough to get anywhere in the range of punishing K-Ponce for that quite yet. I mean, taking the second Mantis Rider, leaving him with just a land, leaves
can't
Dylan
even cycle the Canopy.
yeah, you cannot even cycle this Horizon Canopy to look at another card. Looks like Dylan did draw. That's a good one.
That's it.
That is one of the better ones.
Exactly. One of, if not the best card that he could have drawn there. It's close.
You saw K-Ponce kind of give a little respectful nod to that card. Certainly one of the better ones for catching Dylan back up and getting him to have a fighting chance in this game. Allows for some decent blocks against the Thought-Knots here too.
Yeah. And now he names
the card he remembers off of his Thought-Knots here. Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, this Path to Exile is going to do a pretty good job disrupting this Melee Mage house of cards whenever K-Ponce decides to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, exactly. I imagine that he's going to hold on to the last possible second, and then he's going to Path to Exile the Melee Mage. Oh, okay.
Now this is a good attack because
that's pretty good.
Dylan, it does kind of signal that you do have some kind of removal spell because that's an attractive double block. If you're able to double block with like a Meddling Mage plus like the Motion Bugler, you're only trading one of your creatures for Thought-Knots here, which gives you another card, and you don't really care about the Kunaros that much. You just kind of want to kind of stifle a little bit of the bleeding. As it is, K-Ponce can't even play the Kunaros, right? So Dylan does a good job sniffing out. There's a removal spell, says no block. And is now kind of turned on to the fact that K-Ponce probably has something like a removal spell in hand.
Yeah, K-Ponce is winning the race though, so it's not like, well, I guess Militia Bugler has Vigilance. It's easy to forget about that part of the card. So that means that he can attack and play defense at the same time. But, well, I mean, K-Pons has 5 cards in hand to Dylan's 0, so...
Yeah, and almost all of them are creatures and a removal spell, so Dylan's going to have a pretty hard time racing, I think.
Yeah, seems rough. Or are we going to see the Ghost Quarter myself line? Oh, you'll love to see it. You love to see... Oh, no! Ghost Quarter you, so you can't draw a card. Now my Concealed Coneyard enters untapped. This guy knows what's up.
Oh, now it enters untapped. See, that's why he plays the Death and Taxes deck, and we simply do the commentary. Because K-Pon's much smarter than we are, figured out a great line. It looks a lot better than anything we were suggesting. And we see K-Pon's kind of leverage a little bit of that interaction to pull even farther ahead.
Yeah, this looks pretty rough for Dylan at this point. Even if he wants to, he has access to the Flicker Wisp. Now, Displacer is actually in play where Dylan can't interact with it unless he draws a Reflector Mage. He can start blinking his own Charming Prince for value to scry every turn or to gain life or whatever the heck he wants to do. Combat is basically just unwinnable for Dylan anymore. This is all going K-Pons.
This is a lot of the luck we saw in game 2, where Displacer plus Thought-Knot Seer just leaves the human's deck that attacks solely on the ground with no good options.
Exactly. So probably the only thing that Dylan can find here is like a Thalia's Lieutenant or something like that, or like the other Lord, so that his dudes can actually brawl with K-Pons' dudes. Because actually, this is not the normal thing. Usually, the humans deck goes a little bit bigger than the Eldrazi Taxes deck. But, you know, when you have your Thought-Knot on turn 3, so you can snipe the Mantis Rider, you know, things get a little bit tougher.
Yeah, Dylan's hand, you could definitely tell from both of them. The plan was certainly to fly over the Eldrazi Taxes deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Displacer are probably going to just absolutely take over this game from here, and there's not much that Dylan can do. The only thing that he can do is probably like throw everything in front of a Thought-Knot Seer or something, which is probably what K-Pons is thinking about right now.
I think that's the consideration here is like you're very far ahead. How do you make attacks to where you give Dylan the least number of draw steps without, you know, kind of also giving him outs to where there are impactful draw steps to kind of pull himself back into this game. Just simple resource management. I'm sure K-Pons is very experienced, needs a second to figure out. We're going to see where this Flicker Wisp goes, and we'll just kind of see how this game plays out from here.
Yeah, actually, the Flicker Wisp is really nice because it allows him to do a lot of tricks thanks to Displacer, while at the same time presenting a clock in the air where Dylan can't interact with it. We're going to get some value here. Probably going to get some scry action. He doesn't have any good attacks just yet, but blinking the Flicker Wisp actually takes the creature away for a while instead of just immediately blinking like Displacer does. So that makes combat even more of a nightmare for Dylan.
Yeah. What do you want to see here from this Charming Prince? He looks like he was reaching for a Scry too. He also has access to a slow exile with something like Thought-Knot Seer. That does take your best blocker off the board, but it does give you another trigger. There's no cards in hand from Dylan. Gives him a card immediately. Probably not great. Could also go with like the Flicker Wisp, like flicking your Flicker Wisp kind of chain. A lot of tricks you could do with this Charming Prince. Looks like he does ultimately decide that Scry 2 is the best way to use the little bit of value gained there. And
I agree. I think that he is like, as long as he finds lands, particularly colorless lands, I don't think there's literally anything that Dylan can do to stop him, because the Displacer is going to just take over this game completely. So I think that wanting to try to find access to more mana is probably the line to go while you're swinging for 3 in the air every turn. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, certainly not. And I think the 4th Meddling Mage, if two the exiled one weren't good enough, I don't think this 4th Meddling Mage is adding a whole lot to this board. We're going to see Dylan take a little bit to figure out what he wants to name. He names Plague Engineer.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I think that pauses him seeing what the most punishing card was. Yeah, and deciding what the best name was there.
Yeah, I mean, still though, whatever he names, if Capons happens to draw it and he thinks that he wants to cast it in the same turn, he can simply use the Displacer to blink his own Flicker Wisp and make the Meddling Mage disappear for the same turn, cast his spell, and then the Meddling Mage comes back and is doing nothing. So Meddling Mage probably not the best card not the card that Dylan wanted to draw 3 copies of. Let me tell you.
I'm certain if Dylan could choose to draw 3 copies of any card in the matchup, Meddling Mage would be very, very low on the list.
Mm-hmm. Not doing too well. There's the Giganta still looming over there. So this is a noble hire. Okay, so we are 1 mana away from having just a 5/5.
I mean, so a large creature does buy you more time, which I think, it's better than just dying. But once again, the more time that you're passing turns against the Displacer Thought-Knot Seer lock, the more opportunities Capons has to start making land drops and extract even more value out of this Displacer, right? So Dylan, even though like he can stall the board a little bit, maybe keep himself from just being attacked to death, that we may see Capon switch gears a little bit from taking this beatdown role now that since he was ahead on board, and instead moving to just extracting value out of all of his creatures until Dylan is completely buried.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. And this Flicker Wisp that Kevin is leaving on top, it's gonna present a 1-turn clock, which is probably gonna be enough to finish this game up. Probably like the only draw that Dylan has at this point is exactly Mantis Rider, I guess.
I mean, Mantis Rider's good, but even still, that one can get locked down. It may just simply lock down the Eldrazi Displacer for a little bit of time while Dylan continues to get attacked by a Flicker Wisp, right? So it's just,
you're right. Yeah,
he's in a hard spot no matter which way.
So Reflector Mage, I guess, is the only out. And that
Reflector Mage is a start. Yeah, I think Dylan's going to need a string of draw steps no matter which way we draw this up. Dylan's certainly going to need a lot of help.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely beautifully navigated by Kevin here.
Yes, sir. We certainly got to see him play very well. Both players, I got my wish. Both players have Aether Vials this game, and a little late in the game, we didn't get to see a ton of tricksy stuff with Aether Vials. We got to see enough, and certainly that Ghost Quarter play that caught us both off guard, I think, was quite impressive, and we got to learn a lot from that. Flickering the Aether Vials, another like not super intuitive play. I mean, if I had to pick something on the board, I'd be pretty unlikely to flicker the Flicker Wisp, flicker the Aether Vial. But Capon selects that one. Dylan takes a draw step, concedes the game. He's decided he's all done, and I think that's a pretty apt concession from Dylan. And I do not think that he was clawing his way back into that game. Even he's probably at that point in the game where you could stack your deck, literally Vampiric Tutor every turn, and not actually get yourself back in the game, right?
Exactly.
Just wasn't in the cards. He was too far behind, and so I think he came to the same conclusion. We move on.
Yeah. The play of that game was definitely Ghost Quartering the Horizon Canopy to deny Dylan the draw step and also make the concealed.
Beautiful.
It's just like.
Yeah,
Galaxy you play a lot of Amulet Titan. You know that when you play your lands matters. But holding on to that land, I was looking at it and I was like, oh, it's like coming to play tap land. And then I was like, what is he waiting for? He's got to choose if he's either playing Displacer or Path. And I saw him play Path and I was like, oh, I guess he's not playing Displacer. And then I was like, wait, he could Ghost Quarter his own land. And I was he could Ghost Quarter the Horizon Canopy. But even then, I still wasn't thinking because I was like, oh, you
didn't put it all together yet.
Yeah. Huge. I still wasn't thinking.
That was beautiful.
Oh, don't worry, I still get to play Displacer too. That was just such a next level. I feel like I just leveled up a little bit right there.
It's certainly incredible stuff. And this is part of the cool thing you see about Eternal formats, right? Players that have gotten to play decks years and years and years, and they build up all this experience that they can easily see these lines where a lot of us are sitting here like, all right, like I know how to play Magic, I know how to put the cards into play and like, in have matchups that matter, and I can kind of piece together games of Magic with this deck. But then you have the players that are true masters of their craft, and they're on the next level. They can kind of piece together turns like that are pretty unintuitive to us, and they immediately see the lines. They're like, all right, yeah, how do I get this Concealed Courtyard into play untapped? How do I castle spells I want to cast this turn? And you get to see them execute, and that's truly the kind of Magic that I think once you are an experienced Magic player, that's the kind of stuff you go looking for, because that's the kind of stuff that's exciting. when you get to see these new moments, these new tricks, the stuff you've never seen before that players that are just picking up Deck for the first time would never see, right? Like that's truly the exciting stuff to watch in Magic. And I mean, that's why we're here, right? That's why we show up to Modern.
To that one moment. You could write like a short paper about it, like the denying the draw off of the Horizon Canopy single-handedly, like that was like one nail on the coffin. Like that by itself was like ching ching. Like you get one less.
Yeah.
It was just every
so
moment about it.
It's easy to get lazy in that spot too, where Capons was already very ahead, right? It's so easy to just be like, whatever, I'll just throw another thing into play. What are the chances he comes back from this spot anyway? But Capons really demonstrated discipline there, just being like, all right, no, I'm going to play my cards efficiently. This game isn't over. We're not in the garbage time yet, like we saw in some of the Yorion games where they're just so insanely far ahead. He was ahead, but he was not like absurdly far ahead, and so he was very disciplined, didn't get lazy, and found a good line. And it's
definitely something to not like. You were talking about how you can play a little bit faster when you're in paper and you're way ahead. You don't do that online because the MTGO clock. But there's definitely something to relaxing too much when you're very far ahead. I lost a top 8 berth a bit ago. Well, actually, at this point, probably a year and a half ago. My buddy walked up to me. He said, "Hey, I'm getting lunch. Do you want something?" And I looked down, and he shouldn't have done this, by the way, because in the middle of a match, like the top 8 winning in, and he was like, I was like, yeah, grab me a pizza. I'll be done in a minute. I lost. I still to this day.
You thought you were so far ahead. You're just like, I'm getting pizza. I'm celebrating.
My opponent had. I just like Inquisition him. He had no cards in hand. He top decked exactly Snapcaster, and the next card was Temur Battle Rage for his Death Shadow. It was just like the exact 2 cards in the exact order that I could lose to at that particular moment. And because I had like 4 Lingering Souls tokens, I was like against Death Shadow. I was like, oh, this game is over.
Yeah.
Never let your foot off the pedal too much. Don't do it. Don't talk to your buddy about what pizza you want to order when you're in the middle of an
the old pizza can wait. The pizza can wait till you're in top 8.
Exactly.
So that was a really exciting match. I loved it a lot. Next up, we have a special treat for you. Not just the last match of the night between Capallo and VizQuiz. I'm sorry I'm still butchering your name. He sent me a video of how to pronounce his name. I've got to listen to it at the end of this.
Leave it to Andrea to have a video dialed about how to pronounce it.
And I thought that my username was messed up. But Ryan's really is on another level. Yeah. It's insane.
So not only do we have that match coming up, but we also have a getting to know you video from Andrea and a deck tech video for one of his 3 decks. So I'm pretty excited about this. We're going to do getting to know you videos. We're going to do deck techs as the weeks progress. Once again, I want to say we are sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and Card Hoarder, which is absolutely fantastic. I use MTGO. My wife is not in the room. She's probably watching still, though, but every day. Working. And Card Hoarder is my only source of where I get my cards. So definitely check those out. So we're going to have a quick break with last match coming up for you, the finale tonight. Please, please, please stay for that. And every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, we will be streaming Modern Magic. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrea Biaggi, also known as Couple or Couple of 42 in the interwebs. I'm originally from Switzerland, but I moved in California around 12 years ago. I'm a software engineer for a video game company. In my spare time, I coach rugby, I watch wrestling, I play video games, and eat Korean barbecue. I usually stream Legacy and Modern at the URL below my face on Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. My goal for this league is to win it, of course, but if I cannot win it, at least I want to prevent Saint Doom to win it. See you in the league! Hello, Capolo here, and this is my favorite deck I submitted for the Modern Streamers League. This is 4-color Shadow, and I took the list from Dido Guidotti. Dido refers Lurrus as a dog, so I'm gonna refer Lurrus as a dog. Also, I like thinking Lurrus as a dog. So, why playing 4-color over Grixis? We play 4-color because we have access to Traverse the Overwhelmed, then it allows you to find extra threats, or can give you a pump spell like a Giant Growth by getting a fetch land or a shock land if you have that shadow in play. Also, we have the most versatile removal as Assassin's Trophy. Our creature suite is 4 Shadow, 4 Tarmogoyf, and 3 Snapcaster Mages. For our disruption, we have 4 Thoughtseister Inquisitions and 4 Stubborn Denial. To answer permanents on board that we cannot get with the mentioned spells here, we have a Tarfire that also grows a Tarmogoyf by 1 because it's a tribal. We have Seal of Fire that works well with the dog. You can get it back and kill something over and over. Also, we have Fatal Push, really versatile and very efficient, and Colligan's Command. As of other cards filling out the deck, we have 4 Mishra's Bubble that is really good with Lurrus because it allows you to draw an extra card each turn if you have one in the graveyard. Then we have Timur Battle Rage. It's probably the best card to finish the match once you have a big Death Shadow. Can deal a lot of damage out of nowhere through blockers. The change that I made over Dido's deck is Unearth. I really like Unearth as an efficient way to get back Lurrus or Snapcaster or another threat instead of relying to Colligan's Command. In the sideboard, I'm playing 2 Collector's Oath because I expect in our league a lot of artifact decks. Then we have just some Graveyard Hate, some cards for burn and killing creatures, some more disruptions, and that's it.
All right, and we're jumping right in. We see there's Andrea again, that beautiful face that we got to see a bunch of. We see him recording the video against VizQuiz, playing the deck he just demoed to you, some Lurrus Shadow. We don't know what VizQuiz is on yet, but what do you think of this hand in the blind here, Francisco?
It's a little bit of a sketcher, especially not knowing what you're getting paired against, right?
Yeah, if these Stubborn Denials are good, then like the upside of drawing a blue land and having these Stubborn Denials matter looks pretty attractive. I mean, this is a 2-land hand with a threat, with a redraw, but 3 Stubborn Denials is a lot.
Yeah.
Andrea likes to keep you. He thinks the upsides outweigh the downsides, and leading on Temple of Deceit, that makes me think ad nauseum. And if I remember correctly, VizQuiz actually is Ryan Steiner, somebody that has multiple top 8s from a few years ago with the ad nauseum deck. So without even looking at his deck list, because I do not play VizQuiz at any time in this league, but I would put him on ad nauseum. Like, I think he is
you would be correct.
Most likely to be playing that deck. And yeah, like I don't see the other Temple of Deceits. There's 2 copies in the ad nauseum deck. Like that's just kind of one of the namesakes of the ad nauseum deck is leading on a Scryland here. They can afford to do that because they're often trying to go off on turn 4. Getting more additional cantrips out of their lands is something that deck seems to leverage because their mana accelerant's often Lotus Bloom.
It also means that Andrea's hand is immediately the nuts, right?
Yeah, actually among the best possible, where Stubborn Denial is actually your best card in the matchup by a margin.
So we do see here that he immediately actually goes ahead and bubbles his opponent. I imagine that the reason for this is because he kept the Scry, so he doesn't currently have a discard spell. So by right now bubbling and knowing which card your opponent put on top, you have actually a lot of information about their hand, right? You know that they are going to be short on mana if they kept just a land on top in there, and they're probably going to be flush with action, but that's kind of what you would expect for that kind of card, that kind of hand. And this is like Andrea's hand is just
unlocked. I mean, so something I was going to comment on there is Andrea doesn't actually have access to an island. I thought he was going to be able to grab an island with that traversal wall. Looking at his deck list, he does not have access to an island. Never matters. You can't beat the top of the deck sometimes. Blue land off the top. And we see Thoughtseize taking Phyrexian Unlife, leaving it looks like a Spoils of the Vault and a Serum Visions left. I mean, I can't help but think that, Capolo in a pretty good spot here. I mean, there's 3 Stubborn Denials, which are really good against the 5 mana, like, Ad Nauseam card. Mm-hmm. I don't think, let's see, does Ryan have access to...
No main deck Veils. So we just have back to
like Thassa's Oracle cards. Like, could he maybe try to like get a Spoils of the Vault Thassa's Oracle turn set up before Andrea can actually play a 4-power creature and threaten to have these be hard counters? Because like he does still have a lot of mana.
I would imagine that that's kind of what he's going to need to go for at this point, honestly. Because if Andrea manages to untap and not die, and they just play a Tarmogoyf, and then they're holding up Stubborn Denial for the rest of the game, I don't know how they win. And actually, it's weird, but you have to go for it. Like that's what the Ad Nauseam deck does, right? It's kind of like it's pretty resilient, but once you go for it, right? Like it plays cards like Spoils from the Bolts, Phyrexian Unlife. This is Spoils of the Bolts could just kill you. It can exile all of your win conditions if you're trying to go for Ad Nauseam, right? Like, you're playing a deck that is pretty resilient, but there's a lot of percentages, and like...
There's a little bit of fail rate.
Exactly. There is a fail rate because of the kind of cards that it chooses to play. So if you go for the Spoils skill, I guess that the line would be to cast the Thassa's first, and then with the trigger on the stack, Spoils for a card that's not in your deck. So then even if your Spoils gets countered, you don't deck yourself.
Even going for that line, Visquez needs a little bit more pieces to set that up. He still needs an Angel's Grace. He still needs a Phyrexian Unlife. Like these, we're talking about like 3 card combos to kind of try to get around these Stubborn Denials. And I just don't know that with the Thoughtseize Disruption and Andrea being able to play a Tarmogoyf with a Stubborn Denial up as early as next turn, that Visquez is going to be able to kind of assemble all that before kind of Andrea gets under Visquez here.
Yeah, it seems it's just like a really rough spot. We see him resolving his Serum Visions and really tanking about it. It would be very interesting to know what he's considering, right? Like which 2 cards is he actually looking at? But honestly, like Andrea's play looks pretty straightforward. Like if I were in his seat, I would be feeling like $1 million right now.
Right. Yeah, this game looks fairly easy to play as long as you pick the right targets for your Stubborn Denials. I think it's going to be pretty hard for you to lose this game. You wouldn't mind picking up a second blue source to play around something like a Pax of Negation.
That's exactly
but outside of that, this hand is basically as set up as you can possibly make it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. He wouldn't mind another land. In fact, that would probably be one of his best draws at this point. Maybe like a Death Shadow or something that allows him to speed up the clock would also be pretty nice for him.
Even a discard spell, just another piece of proactive interaction is also fine. A lot of good draws in Andrea's deck. I mean, as we said, Andrea is very, very far ahead right now, and we don't even have a threat in play yet. But we know there's one coming down next turn, one already in hand with protection backup. Andrea's next turn fairly scripted. We'll see exactly how he wants to play it out. Does he want to take damage for the like Death Shadow and Shock here, or is he going to have it intertap because his threat's Tarmogoyf? All that's kind of just in the details. It doesn't super matter that much, but it is decisions that we're going to see Andrea have to make here.
Yeah, and I mean, this is like precisely the kind of deck that the Death Shadow, that's what its entire strategy preys upon, right? Like you're trying to play against the decks where your Stubborn Denials are at their best, and that you can, maximize your discard spells and stuff like that. And yeah, Ad Nauseam is really weak. Like that's precisely the kind of decks that had lost.
Really weak to the
really struggles
disruption
against.
backed up by pressure. I mean, this is like, once again, this is a formula. We were talking about like formulas in Magic, that, like at least matchup styles that come up a lot. Here we're seeing a combo deck through and through. Like it's what Ad Nauseam wants to do is it wants to ignore your opponent, assemble a few cards that lead to you winning the game. You want to cast an Ad Nauseam with some kind of I can't lose the game effect, and you end up just assembling all the cards in your deck with Seeming Spirit cards and stuff to win the game. But you see the best natural threat to that is very often cheap disruption. We're talking cheap counter spells, discard spells, backed up by quick, efficient clocks. Often termed things like tempo decks, where you have like these really efficient creatures that may not be the largest creatures ever, but they're enough to put a real noticeable clock on your opponent, and with enough disruption. The big spell decks, like we saw, like a Yorion deck that we saw earlier is a great example, where here's a deck that's trying to cast big spells, draw a bunch of cards, go over the top of your opponent. But this kind of, that is much worse because Ad Nauseam doesn't care about card advantage. That is much worse against Ad Nauseam than like this deck, which is almost the ideal tools in both cheap discard spells and cheap counter spells. Usually just one or the other is a problem. Both is kind of a real issue.
Exactly, and we see like that Andrea has the perfect combination of this, right? He has like one big threat, big enough to enable his Tower Denial, and then he's just going to be sitting on this Tower Denials for the rest of the game. And Ad Nauseam is pretty tricky, right? Like it's a deck that can win at instant speed, right? Because both Ad Nauseam and Angel's Grace are instants, and Andrea will probably never want to lower his guard. But the good thing is that he doesn't have to, because Ad Nauseam doesn't have any other ways of pressuring you, right? It's not like the Ad Nauseam player can force Andrea to kind of like tap out on an awkward spot or do something like that. As long as he's careful and he is basically holding up this blue mana with tenacity for the rest of the game, we're going to end up with Andrea taking it home here. Well, we see Ryan cracking for blue mana. Very interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ryan, if you're in Ryan's seat and you see your opponent with, what was it, 6 cards in hand, make no plays, just attack with Tarmogoyf Pass, what are you thinking? Like, it can't just be a bunch of creatures. You have to immediately be like, there's at least a Stubborn Denial. And you see...
Is he going to steal this one? Does he have the Oracle in hand? Because, like... That's it. Like, there's no more blue mana. What you were saying earlier about he wouldn't mind another blue mana. Oh my God, are we gonna see a win here?
Look at Andre. He's like just kind of shrugging. He's like, we're gonna do our best.
Oh my God.
Is this? Does he have 2 spoils? You think spoils for Thassa's Oracle would kind of indicate that he has a second spoils dialed up to try to win the game here. Now, does Andrea have Delirium? Because if so, he could have traversed. He could have spent last turn traversing for another blue source, another Shockland.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't know if he was holding it to try to find another threat, but we could have maybe seen another blue source come up.
I think he... Okay, so until he cast the Stubborn Knight, he didn't have Delirium. So he was trying to cycle Unearth on Ryan's end step so that he could actually... enable Delirium for the following turn. So it makes sense what he did. And yeah, we're actually going to see Ryan have exactly the perfects with Pact of Negation backup.
Wow, yeah, Pact of he spoils for Pact of Negation first and then went for Thassa's Oracle, which seems pretty crazy. There's 0 cards in the library, though. So I don't think this Final Push actually does anything when there's 0 cards in the library, right? So
at this point...
I mean,
that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. Like, we saw, Ryan, like I said, played Ad Nauseam for a long time. When you're talking about the modern streamers leagues, these are players that are going to put their pet decks in their list of decks. They're going to put the decks that they've played over years and have mastered. And we're really getting to watch some of that. We literally were sitting here like, yeah. Caballo's in a great spot. Andrea can't lose. His hand's just great. Look at all these cards. And he's just doing awesome. And then look at Andrea just does nothing but shrug as Ryan found the line. It's just you mean loses immediately? I thought you said can't lose, not loses immediately. Yeah, it's just
basically the same thing.
They sound the same. So insane stuff. I mean, and this is the power of Ad Nauseam. Despite the fact it's often quoted as being slower than other combo decks, often can't present a kill. earlier than turn 4 a lot of the time until Thassa's Oracle was printed. Thassa's Oracle changed a lot of the dynamic, both making the deck more consistent by giving you more combos and also making the deck like faster. I think it now can present a turn 3 kill with Pentad Prisms and stuff. So the deck certainly looked incredible there. It was firing on all cylinders. I still hold that Shadow is favored. You and I were talking the whole match about Shadow, what it does there. Usually it's good enough. Now here we got to see Ryan find the line, dig his way out from what seemed to be an impossible situation from our side of the table. I bet he doesn't even know how much trouble he was in. Yeah. If you could see the cards, he'd probably be like, "Whoa, this is gonna be a hard one to win himself." But very disciplined, found the line. We saw him tank on that Serum Visions earlier, and now I even more so want to know what that decision was because I bet it very heavily impacted the outcome of that game. But moving into the sideboards.
We have a lot of cards that we want here. We have a lot of cards, and we see Andrea bringing in Brutalities, Disputes, Veil of Summer. Actually, he went back on the Disputes. And Collector Oof is a very interesting one, and I think it's super cool. I actually think that if you can disrupt the Ad Nauseam's mana, which is all artifact-based, besides the lands, of course, then you actually have a very, very easy time because they cannot really ramp any other ways, right? So you have a lot of time to set up and try to make sure that you're ahead while they are down on cards, right? Because if they spend a card for in order to play an artifact that now it's doing absolutely nothing, you actually have a 2/2 in play. So
yeah, it does add to the board. I mean, I played some of this matchup from the blue-white control side, and actually some of your best possible hands included turn 2 Stony Silence.
Exactly.
Because that doesn't even come with a 2/2 body attached because you shut down their mana, and shutting down their mana, their deck does not have a high land count. It often can't cast all the pieces it needs to cast. It has trouble just paying 5 mana to cast Ad Nauseam off of its mana base. You're playing something like 18 lands and relying on your artifacts to really bridge you to the mana you need. And so that's a very good choke point for a lot of decks to attack. And yeah, we see the Collector Oof immediately in hand. I would have liked to see maybe a trim on the Mishra's Baubles. And you may need to leave some to enable Delirium and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
you probably
your
have
graveyard synergies. But a lot of this, this matchup isn't about the Lurrus Bauble thing, right? So you don't really ever want to draw more than one, and you don't really want to draw it after Collector Oof's in play. Granted, once Collector Oof's in play, you're already doing a lot of winning, and you can afford to be down a card. But I would have liked to see a few Mishra's Bauble cut here.
Yeah, one thing that I want to point out though is that from Ryan Cyber, we're looking at 2 Vontus Last Reckoning and 2 Paths to Exile as removal spells with 3 Veil of Summers and potentially 3 Leyline of Sanctity. I don't know how much of that is Ryan going to be bringing in, but he even does have a sizable amount of answers to Andrea's threats. So that is probably something that is in his mind as well. So he knows that this Collector Oof is just probably not gonna make it all the way. And we see the combo immediately showing up right now.
Oh yeah, look at me. He's like, wow, look at that. We see Andrea recognizing his good deck building there, being able to fire off the Bauble prior to casting this Collector Oof. That good deck building.
What a professional. Immediately drawing the Bauble precisely on the nick of time. Good stuff.
So a little controversial choice here that we didn't really get to remark on is we see this Veil of Summer in Andrea's hand. What is that for? Talk me through that. There's only 2 Thoughtseize in the sideboard. There's a single, I think, how many pact negations are in this deck? Is it 1?
Packs. 3 packs.
Okay, I'm sorry. 3 pact negations. So is it just for pact negation? It seems a little narrow to me. Trying to line that up, it seems like the times that's going to line up, you're already in pretty bad shape. You want to be proactive, not reactive. And Veil of Summer kind of strikes me as a reactive card. Can you talk me through what you think's going on there?
I would imagine that we look at the previous match, right? In the previous match, Andrea had everything set up and ready to go, and then Ryan was able to kind of go for it with back. If it's very rare that Andrea is going to play a threat and then he's going to need that mana immediately. So what I'm trying to say here is he's going to deploy the threat early, and then in the subsequent turns he's going to be able to hold up his mana and just wait for Ryan to do something. for Ryan to kill him, actually. So what he can do is he can use the Stubborn Denial, and then he can use Veil of Summer to make sure that the Stubborn Denial resolves and that he cannot die. I imagine that that's what he's trying to think about here, and he probably believes that Veil of Summer is better than Mystical Dispute, which probably is correct, because I guess it draws a card.
I mean, I don't, like I said, we were talking about this earlier. We're like, I don't think the card draw necessarily matters that much. This matchup isn't about card advantage. It's about kind of board presence and like, you know, the tempo, being able to stop your opponent
Exactly.
from making plays that advance their game state.
Exactly, but I imagine that like the sole reason for bringing in Mystical Dispute is precisely because of Pact of Negation. Like, I guess that you could counter Thassa's Oracle, which could be relevant, but like you are basically countering Pact of Negation most of the time, and Veil of Summer just does that better, I guess.
Sure.
And also,
I mean, any target removal spells that come in too, things like Echoing Truth, I guess, and Slaughter Pact are cards that Ryan has access to that Veil does shut down. Maybe it just has enough targets that it's good enough. I don't know exactly how many I'd want, if any, but I thought it was certainly worth commenting on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We see here the classic Delirium-less.
Delirium-less Traverse for a basic just to kind of turn it on.
A very sane Traverse. No,
not insane. It's not an insane Traverse.
It's not a delirious Traverse. It's not a crazy Traverse. It's just a normal Traverse. It's a very sane one. But yeah, this means that K-Command is now
Speaking of cards firing on all cylinders, how about your Omen Speaker? How about the Omen Speaker, Thassa's Oracle? We're playing with draft playables right here. Bears versus Omen Speakers.
Draft playables, you say?
Okay, you're right. Omen Speaker's not a draft playable. Bears are draft playable. Come on.
Oh, man.
Now, Ryan does not have Veil protection up this turn, so there's no need to worry with this Inquisition of Kozilek. I expect we're going to fire that one off pretty quickly. Oh, do we go for the double strike? What do you think of this Temur Battle Rage?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a K-Command here. Oh, no. Yeah. All right, here we go.
I love it.
Here we go.
Get that oof mad. Make it mad. This is premium Magic. Look, this is literally, limited playables. You wanted it. How about a bear crashing into an Omen Speaker using a combat trick? Literally limited Magic we're watching here. This is good stuff.
Worse than the Korea Common, the one that gives double strikes. Because it doesn't even cycle. Oh, wow.
So we're Inquisitioning a 7-card hand of all spells. I mean, Ryan's missing land drops, so you know there's going to be spells.
Yep.
What do you take?
I mean, the only ways to poke a hole in this hand are to, I guess, take the Veil or take the spoils from the vault. With the Veil, you are setting yourself up to not get blown out. So if your opponent has mana, you can decay it or something like that. And the spoils is a proxy for Ad Nauseam. But I don't think, like, the Pact of Negation doesn't matter, right? Because we have Veil. So we don't need to worry about that. And yeah, I guess the path doesn't matter either because we have 2 Woofs. Yeah, so I guess
Andrea does not appear to be very confident in his choice. A nice little shrug from him there. I mean, I don't hate taking the Angel's Grace because if we're taking Veil, it's saying my plan for this game is I'm going to draw more interaction. But you can't really assert that. You can't say that's how this game's going to play out. And so instead he's like, all right, instead of trying to stop you from stopping my interaction, I'm just going to take your combo pieces and hope these 2 oofs and maybe eventually this shadow can kill you before you actually reassemble the combo from this one piece of interaction I've worked with here. And if you do draw the land and play your Phyrexian Life, which I think we're about to see here, he has access to the Abrupt Decay to immediately destroy that.
Okay. So this is another alternative. So I was considering taking the spoils because it takes care of the quote unquote ad nauseam. But what Andrea's doing is instead he's going to take care of the I can't die aspect of the combo.
Right. And this Abrupt Decay basically takes care of the other one, leaving Ryan with no options as far as the, can't lose the game aspects of this. And drawing a fetch land, actually one of the better draws here, allows him to add to the board, get another threat into play, and be able to hold up Veil of Summer like for basically the rest of the game. I mean, Shadow doesn't use its mana that well, or use up all of its mana.
Yeah.
As in the late game once they're making a bunch of land drops because their cards are very efficient. Now, there is still a Veil of Summer in Vizquiz's hand. This Kolaghan's Command, that's something you have to think about. I actually don't know that I would hate a shock yourself play here from
Andrea.
From Andrea, just because it's more guaranteed to work because you want to add to the pressure. I think it actually presents lethal if I can do the math right.
Yeah, but he knows about the Path to Exile though.
That is true.
So without a Stubborn Denial. Also, one thing that I was going to say is Andrea left up Veil of Summer here, and he left up the Overgrown Tomb instead of the Watery Grave. So he's clearly telegraphing that he does not have a Stubborn Denial. So I wonder if it was worth it to, like, there's nothing that you're veiling this turn. So I wonder if it would have been worth it to bluff that you have Stubborn Denial in hand in order to make Ryan play differently by leaving the Watery Grave untapped on that very turn.
Because consideration, a card like Thoughtseize does actually punish you. I don't think that Ryan would bring Thougeize into this matchup. I don't think it's very good. But there are cards that do punish you, and I don't know. This Thoughtseize looks a little awkward for sure, but you can Thoughtseize and then fire off the Kolaghan's Command, and
what I would imagine is going to happen here is he's Thoughtseizing because of the damage, because it grows the shadow.
Sure.
So I imagine that's why we're seeing the Thoughtseize.
Well, the Veil of Summer that he knows about will prevent that from resolving. It just causes Ryan to tap another land, right?
Oh, yeah, that actually makes sense.
However, like I said, if in response to the Veil, he can fire off the Kolaghan's Command, get 2 extra points and the discard effect, and that should be enough for lethal. This path doesn't super matter. Because, like I said, we have 6 damage if this Kolaghan's Command happens. What does matter is like another effect, which I think there's a Pact of Negation he can pay for with the Singing Spirit Guide, but that still leaves him dead on the following turn. I think Andrea might have assembled lethal here with that.
Yeah, he actually has it because he needs to take 2 in order to pay for a Pact of Negation. So that's not even it's not even something that he can do.
So we may have scaled up the spells around the draft playables, but it's looking like draft playables got there. How about 3 mana shock? How about that?
3 mana shock and 2 mana 2/2, baby. What else could you want?
I mean, it doesn't get any more. You want Magic as Garfield intended. It doesn't get any better than this. This is literally Magic as Garfield intended. I'm sorry. If you don't like this kind of Magic, then maybe Magic's not for you. This is why I show up.
Honest Magic is what this is. Man.
Just bare beat down with busted spells, just like it was in Alpha.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, we see the Pact, but Ryan's gonna die on his upkeep, which is hilarious. I appreciate the Pacting there.
Well, he has Simian Spirit Guide. He's not dead on his upkeep.
He dies because of the City of Brasses.
yeah, I know.
So,
I mean, I think there's a line actually where he can spoils for Angel's Grace, and then do something? Question mark. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something. Being at 1 makes it a little harder.
Yeah. I mean, that is why Nauseam plays City of Brass instead of something like Mana Confluence. Okay, there we go.
There it is. Look at Andrea throwing his hands up. He's like, okay. Am I dead? If there's a Thassa's Oracle on top of that deck, I believe he's dead. Aww.
Oh, this is great.
Just good magic. So the trigger does still go on the stack above Split Second, which is not intuitive, but does make sense. Triggers still go on the stack with Split Second, and it's not stop it. Yeah,
that's hilarious. Wow, that's funny. Wait, is that how that works now?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it's now. I think triggers are one of the only things that work with Split Second, because I believe, if I remember correctly, it came up with Counterbalance, where you could counter Split Second spells with Counterbalance in Legacy.
Yeah, so interesting. Okay, okay. So the reason why they play Cedar Brass is because they can pay under Phyrexian Life, which with Mana Confluence, once your life is below 0, you actually cannot tap for mana. So that's what it is.
Oh, okay, sure.
Nauseam
I'll believe you. I believe it works something like that. I'm willing to buy that.
Nauseam is a deck that is filled with like the most random and most stupid cards. One of my favorite matchups when I was just starting to play Amulet. This is like 5 years ago or something. And there was a guy at my LGS that would always play Amulet. He would always play Ad Nauseam, and we would have like the most random games. Like for example,
many packs. Oh my god!
Dude, Hive Mind.
Sure.
Hive Mind.
Why not?
Angel's Grace, and you get a copy of it. So they can't win.
Just cast your packs for free at that point. I don't know, man.
So stupid.
I don't
It's
know.
so stupid. It's hilarious. It was
That's
one of my
crazy.
favorite things ever. So silly.
So I have a question. What do you think of Ceremonious Rejection in this matchup? You see one in the sideboard. If we're
Uh-huh.
bringing in Collector Oof to stop the artifact mana, why do you see Andrea not reaching for something like Ceremonious Rejection in this matchup?
I would imagine that it's because one of them answers, like one of them is too situational, while the other one is like it answers the stuff that's already on board, right?
Sure. No.
It's for the same reason why I like a lot of people bring in Ceremonious Rejection against Amulet, and I'm like, why are you doing that? Like if I have turn 1 Amulet and I'm on the play, it doesn't matter. That's it.
Yeah.
That's literally my only color spell, my only colorless spell. So
Some decks do play the card Great Creator package.
I do play
cards
cards sometimes, yeah. I do play cards sometimes, but so that is I would assume. Also, he has so much disruption, right? He already has so many cards that he's bringing in and that are very good. Like he's already not bringing in Mystical Disputes because he has so much stuff that matters already.
Right. I mean, yeah, his main deck's already pretty well positioned, as we were discussing earlier. I think he still brought in something like 10 cards or whatever. Like, he brought a whole bunch of the sideboard cards in just because they're good enough. I don't know that necessarily, like, we saw the Veil just kind of rot Andrea's hand last game. And in my personal opinion, I don't know that I would reach for something like Veil of Summer. But once again, I wouldn't call myself an expert in the Shadow ad nauseum matchup by any stretch. And we see, a turn 1 Leyline. You see Andrea sink his head a little bit. This Thoughtseize was certainly one of the attractive pieces in this hand.
Good. Yeah. No, for what I was going to say is like the big part of the reason why we actually have 10 cards that we're bringing in, it's because we have like 10 cards that we want out, right? We have like Fatal Pushes that are not doing anything. We have Dismembers. We have a bunch of effects like that we actually actively don't want in our deck. So I would imagine that Andrea is looking for an Assassin's Trophy right now. That's probably like the best thing.
Yeah, just some kind of answer to it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, ad nauseum having no plan 1 and no tap land is a little interesting. Makes you kind of wonder if like, is there still like they're doubled down on the effects to stop the discard because the discard is so impactful. They have ley lines and they have veils. Does this maybe send a signal to you that he has veil, or what are you thinking when he just has just lands? Do you think he already has the combo dialed up, no cantrips needed or whatever?
Okay. I guess this answers your question. Exile in a Simian Spirit Guide to cast a Pentat Prison.
That's temporary mana for temporary mana, I guess. When you need it, you need it.
That's what's up. So Ryan has no lands at all.
Yeah, no kidding. We have no other lands. That's the answer to my question.
He definitely kept his hand based on the strength of Leyline, and it's pretty good, right? Like we're blanking already a card in Andrea's hand, and actually a very impactful one, mostly because of the damage that Andrea would have been able to take for free, right? He has this Death Shadow that he currently cannot even deploy, and if he had been able to Thoughtseize on turn 1, he would have been able to play it. In fact, maybe he might have to Thoughtseize himself here, discarding the Veil, just so he can deploy the Shadow earlier. It might be a little bit too risky, because like at that point we're kind of just dying to like a Path to Exile or something.
Thoughtseizing ourselves? I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, if this is being as honest as possible. You're like, all right, you're missing land drops, but I have a Shadow and a Temur Battle Rage. Kill me before this kills you.
Exactly. That's exactly what we see right here. This is honestly not that rare of a play. I did play a bit of that Shadow myself right after the banning of Gitaxian Pro. When the deck switched over to being more like mid-rangey, it felt a little bit more appealing to me. So I actually played a fair amount of the Shadow myself. So this is a play pattern that is not so rare.
I mean, I love it. This is the kind of stuff I live for. I love watching this stuff out of Death Shadow, where it's like, I mean, already you're trying to do as much damage to yourself as possible, which is completely counterintuitive from like typical Magic, right? Like you're just like, my life total, I want it to go down. But like, when you take it even a step further, you start tar firing yourself, you start bolting yourself, you start Thoughtseizing yourself. I'm
doing it the hard way.
It's just such. It's Magic played on such a completely flipped axis that it's really, really interesting to watch to me, and I'm living for this.
It's really, really funny the things that the Death Shadow players will do too.
Yeah.
to get their life totals a little bit lower.
I really like Andrea missed the land drop. I like Andrea switching gears that quickly too.
Yep.
He was like, all right, like you mulliganed or whatever, like you're low on resources, you just to get a Pentad Prism in play, you're really banking on this Leyline of Sanctity to matter. So I'm just going to abandon everything else. This Thoughtseize is never getting through, and I'm just going to try to kill you. I'm done with interacting. You spent all your time trying to stop me from interacting. I'm going to try to just get you dead while you spend all your time doing that. And we're going to see if that plan actually pays off here. Mm-hmm. And with Ryan missing land drops, it's looking fairly likely. I mean, we have lethal presented, I believe, next turn, if I can math. 15, 6. No, yeah. I think we're short.
So that's exactly what I was going to say. You might have wanted to, since you cannot present lethal on the next turn, maybe he would have wanted to
with Lurrus percent lethal.
Bubble himself. Although I guess that the Lurrus actually makes sense here.
Yeah, the Lurrus presents like
bubble himself.
How could we forget about companions? We're too busy watching draft unplayable stuff that we completely forgot about the companion.
That's right. This is why this deck is busted.
Yeah. Oh, right.
My bad.
Broken magic card. How did we forget?
We were thinking about fair magic as Richard Garfield intended, and we forgot about the brokenness of it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable that we could forget about the broken magic card.
That's hilarious. But no, I mean, I still think that, again, we're not presented lethal we are presented lethal probably anyway next turn, so if he had bubbled himself, he could have used this Scry trick.
And like you can't disrupt your opponent anyway, so the information doesn't do you a whole lot. There's nothing you can do about whatever the cards at the top of the library are.
Exactly. So you only care about the cards that you're drawing. So if you're drawing a dead card, he could have done like a little bit of
like I see a Veil cycle here. We cast a black card finally. There it is. Pay a life point to cycle Veil.
Wow. That has to have been his draw step, because he could have done it. No, because he would have needed to use a Pentad Prism counter in order to do it on the turn.
Pentad Prism.
On the turn that Andrea played the Death Shadow. So, no, we're drawing 2 cards here. Stubborn out? Nope. More Thoughtseizes.
Yeah, if any of them are counter spells, I have a hard time. I mean, we were singing the death knell in game 1, and Ryan found a way. So I'm not going to put it past Ryan to find a way with all these can't lose the game effects and stuff like that. But I mean, if a Stubborn Denial gets added to this mix, I have a hard time once again seeing the lines to victory for Ryan when he's this low on mana.
Yeah, this is, I think, just lethal, right? We have a shock. I guess Path to Exile would do it, of course. Again, Andrea is not holding up any counter magic right now, so Path to Exile would be good to go. So if we just pass the Death Shadow, we are buying a reasonable amount of time. And by reasonable, I mean 2 turns.
yeah. I mean, it's some amount of time, which, I mean, granted, that sometimes is all ad nauseum needs to win the game. You see, Ryan did find a second land here, and that's definitely where it starts. That is where Ryan's winning this game starts, is more mana. So we'll see what Ryan can put together. We've already sung the praises that he's better than us at this deck. Well, let's watch him in action. Looks like a cantrip might be coming down here. Yeah,
of course, and like with him having 4 cards in hand and missing land drops and kind of not doing anything for this many turns, it's probably safe to imagine that he has got access to a hardcast Simian Spirit.
A blocker.
Of course.
Back to draft. We're back. You missed Grey Ogre.
Of course. I was going to say, it's tough to imagine what he could have besides like the combo rolled up and ready to go. Yeah, but I guess...
right? I mean, maybe Ryan over-prioritized this Leyline of Sanctity in the matchup, right? That could very well be what happens. We kept a fairly weak hand off the back of Leyline of Sanctity, expecting it to buy us at the time we need. And, Ryan still kind of in this position to potentially die on turn 4 here.
Turn 2 Thoughtseize myself so I can play Death Shadow was definitely the correct line.
I mean, yeah. Was it Andrea has a pretty cool line here too, where he gets the shock. He can proactively Temur Battle Rage the Death Shadow if he's willing to throw caution to the wind, and then just go, Thoughtseize myself, Temur Battle Rage this, Temur Battle Rage this thing, and he's just crashing for very lethal. It's all about what does he want to play around? If he goes down like to 2, which I'm not even sure he can, then he dies to the lethal crackback. It is worth noting that Lurrus has lifelink, which shrinks the Death Shadow.
That is like the best Nombo in the entire deck, I think.
Yeah.
We already saw Collector Oof Collector Oof being great with alongside Mistress Bubble, but then we see like Lurrus directly working against your namesake card. That's just pure value right
just
there.
Good deck building. So I actually think this is interesting here, where he has 16 lethal. He has 16 points of trample damage, right? Attacking in. So even if there is like something like a removal spell that only killed the creature, he left the black mana up to be able to replay the Death Shadow immediately. Yeah, and so he didn't have to commit that second Thoughtseize.
Yeah, and we also see him not attacking with the Lurrus, which is actually very, very interesting, because if he had attacked with both, he might have put himself in a situation where he might, like, he already knows that Ryan is kind of just dying. It's like a down to 1, right? So if he actually had attack with the Lurrus as well, and the Lurrus gets somehow answered, and then he can just cast a naked Lightning Storm, he could potentially die there.
He could just die to the
exactly
the
just
really bad Lightning Bolt, the draft playable Lightning Bolt. Come on, I'm here to support these cards. They're playable, no matter what you say.
That's insane.
Look at him. There's a little celebration. That gets the concession. No combo from Viz Quiz.
That's
it. Thoughtseize yourself twice strategy ended up getting there. I think that was some interesting Magic to watch. We got to watch like true creature combat on both sides. We got to watch, Ryan really kind of show his mastery of the Ad Nauseam deck in game 1, where we're sitting here like, he's dead, whatever. And then he ends up just being like, all right, yeah, 1 stop, I can beat that. I'm like, get out of here. What is this, turn 4? I don't care. And then and then in game 3, we kind of got to see a very different dynamic where we were talking about, how much stuff did he bring in from the sideboard? How much did he dilute his deck? And we saw he ended up drawing Veil of Summer. This ended up drawing Veil of Summer and Leyline of Sanctity, and had all the pieces to stop the interaction, but then just got beat down by some mopey creatures or whatever, right? Like that really showcased what happens. Like, not necessarily that you overboarded, because it is a bad matchup. You probably do want a lot of these cards, but when you dilute your deck, it comes at a cost.
It is a cost,
yeah. And we really got to see that cost and show itself in increasing the fail right there in game 3.
For sure. And we also saw something that I really enjoyed was like that Thoughtseize myself there is so smart on so many levels, because you're trying to change the axis that the game is played in. Right? You're going from this game is about interaction. You're a combo deck and I'm the fair deck, and I'm trying to interact with what you're doing and stop you from comboing. And we're just throwing that out of the window. And I'm like, I'm the aggro deck. Can you combo before I kill you?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I'm the beatdown now. Look at me.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to interact anyway. No, I don't care. I'll Thoughtseize myself. I don't need you.
Exactly.
I'm still interacting just with myself.
Sounds bad, man.
seems loose on average, but Capolo made it happen, and he advanced on.
And it was the correct line. I think that
game was very well played from both sides. And I really think, unfortunately, it is a bad matchup. I think that was going to be tough for Ryan to begin with, but we really got to see, even in bad matchups, these players both played Magic. Like, this wasn't just a stopping. Like, a lot of times people quote their problems with Modern are that the bad matchups feel unwinnable. You feel like you don't have a chance, you just get rolled, and you just don't have ways to interact. And we really get to see a very different Modern format where I think we've seen multiple bad matchups just tonight play out. And at no point in time have I really been like, these matches were just 100% the players not playing Magic. I think we got to see like true games of Magic in every single one of the matches we played. We got to see tonight, and to me, that's fairly indicative of a pretty healthy Modern format. I really like a Modern where even the bad matchups, both players have a chance and are playing Magic. They're interacting. Their cards matter. They're casting their cards, and it plays out like a game of Magic.
Modern is very grindy right now.
Yeah, for sure. The only kind of like complaint I have about the format is that I just, even though all the decks are different and everything, actually the gameplay is excellent. It's just like I just get tired of playing against the same card, because that's how it feels like, and they're showing it to you at the beginning of every single game, right? It's like, oh, here's my Lurrus. There we go. So that is the only complaint that I have. But even the Lurrus decks are very diverse, right? We have Lurrus Burn, we can play Lurrus Prowess, we have Lurrus Control decks with cryptic commands, call against commands, and stuff like that. We have Lurrus John decks or mid-rangey decks. We have Lurrus Taxes. I played against Lurrus Taxes yesterday. So it's like it's kind of all over the place, but we're playing against the most diverse strategies. It's always the same card, but it is basically idolized from a different angle, and that I think keeps the play patterns a little bit more fresh than it would be in something like Legacy, for example. I think Legacy right now is actually in a terrible spot because like all the decks are Lurrus Delver.
Yeah, so, they're one archetype
it's just
instead of just kind
archetype. You have like Lurrus Ad Nauseam Tendrils or something like that, but it's just like the archetype. When you're playing Lurrus, you're facing some Delver deck, right? The colors might change, but you're facing the Delver deck. Right. Here, you actually have this. You see Lurrus on at the beginning of the game, and you kind of still have no idea what you're playing against.
Do you want Thoughtseize against a Lurrus deck? You don't even know until you've actually seen them play their first land. Like
exactly
when you see, turn one Goblin Guide, you're like, ooh, I should have bottomed after a mulligan. I should have bottomed that Thoughtseize. It's still interplay even with the reveal of the Lurrus, which
just revealing the companion doesn't always reveal the deck, and that adds a whole other dimension to hand keeps because instead of a deck, you have a range of decks, and that range varies pretty widely on what's good, what's not. And I think that's really interesting.
Lurrus, though, that has that range. All of the other
companions, I think Yorion does as well. A lot of Yorion decks, like it's going to include Astrolabe generally, but like even beyond that, like I've seen some like Yorion like creature value decks, and I've seen some Yorion control decks, like cryptic command style stuff.
Aspiring Spikes, Yorion Soul Rider deck.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's here's a deck that's trying to do creature toolbox instead of traditional control deck, and there's a complete night and day difference on whether or not removal spells are good there. I think companions are very much still being figured out, but for the time being, it's companions I don't actually mind. I think companions are actually pretty fun for the formats I'm playing consistently. Now, I can't speak to Vintage and Legacy. I've heard those are hellscapes at the moment. I'm good. I don't know what's going on. This is the Modern Streamers League, not the expensive format Streamers League. But like for
just 1K for a deck, not 10K. Yeah.
Right, sure, exactly. Much more okay, fine. Yeah. Expensive is certainly contextual, but like when we're talking about standard, when we're talking about pioneer, when we're talking about modern, these formats, like even the format that begins to have Mishra's Bauble in it, I think companions are not that. I don't think they're that bad. Like a lot of people are screaming about how busted they are. Like, yeah, they're good, but I don't know that they're just the end-all be-all of Magic. They're just another thing that's been added, this another angle that's been added to Magic, almost like a new card type, right? Like when Planeswalkers came out, people screamed out how it's the end of Magic, and then Magic grew bigger than it's ever been. Companions, I don't think we're seeing the end of days of Magic. I think the games are still very fun. You're still playing a lot of Magic. Lurrus may be too powerful in the extended formats, but Companion as a mechanic, while it is powerful, I do not think is causing miserable games of Magic, because more often players have stuff to do with their mana and they're able to play Magic, and I think that's a good thing for the game.
One thing that I would say though is that what you're saying, like the comparison to Planeswalkers, it's actually a good point. But what Planeswalkers had is that more were printed. So what I think that needs to happen is like, cool, if we're gonna have companions, we need more.
Yes.
Sure.
Like we don't have enough right now. We don't have enough right now, and we need more. If we want to, have companion as a mechanic, cool. Let's start printing a new companion every single set, like or multiple companions every single set, like we do with Planeswalkers. And Planeswalkers can like level themselves, and we have answers to Planeswalkers. Currently, we don't really have answers to companions, right?
Well, the answer to companion is decks that don't care about the value companions bring.
Exactly.
Decks like potentially Amulet Titan, which generates its own value. A deck like Tron, which generates its own value. Ad Nauseam doesn't care that you have an 8th card in your starting hand, because that 8th card doesn't stop what they're doing.
It's not a piece of interaction. I don't care. Nice creature.
So that's kind of the what's pushed right now is if you want to be a solid mid-range or control deck, if you want to be a value-oriented deck, and you're not looking at a companion, you're probably making a mistake. That's my only issue I have with the companion mechanic right now, which printing more would certainly fix. But right now, there's plenty of options. Right now, you don't have to play a companion in Modern. I think only half of our Modern Streamers League deck list actually have companions. There's plenty of combo decks. There's plenty of I actually only run one companion. Mine Amulet Titan doesn't need a companion to grind with these companion grind decks. It just has value on its own.
Yeah, exactly. Dredge doesn't care about companions. Nope. There's multiple decks that just go over the top of what the companions offer. The only problem is that there's some decks that don't get to use the companion and that they just cannot keep up anymore. Like, for example, I was mostly messing around, but with this like Naya Lance deck. And
that sounds sweet already.
Yeah, and that deck is just it's gone. Like
it's kind of miserable to me, but maybe we're just cut from a different fabric. Well, I'm gonna go with that one.
As long as you're running Renegade Rallier in a deck with fetch lands, like that, just like turn 1 Dork, turn 2 fetch land, Renegade Rallier, ramp yourself 1. It's just, I don't know why that's such a bad line, but I love Renegade Rallier way too much. And then they print Loris, and it's like, wait, I could Renegade Rally every turn.
That's a way better Renegade Rally.
Astral Ren has Renegade
Rally. Same size, gains lifelink.
Starts with your opening hand as an 8th card.
And you can do the effect every turn without revolt?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
It's okay. It's fine. We'll chalk it up to fine.
Solid. Yeah. It's pretty solid.
So this was the first night of the Modern Streamers League tournament, where every player, a triple elimination interval, every player gets 3 decks. Check out our website, modernstreamersleague.com. All the deck lists are up there. Our bracket is up there. Definitely check out our YouTube channel if you missed any of the content, or if you want to watch the 2019 Fire vs. Ice matchups, which were absolutely fantastic content. We are sponsored and proudly sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and by Card Hoarder. So definitely check them out. Obviously, you've probably checked out Card Hoarder because you're watching an MTGO show, and you've probably checked out Wizards of the Coast because they kind of made the game we're playing.
They seem relevant.
Yeah, seems a little bit relevant. So
they know what's up.
So closing thoughts, Francisco?
I'm just looking forward to much more of what we had today. I had a great time, and the decks were great. The plays were great. Commentary was great. I had a great time with my fellow over here. Drake, thank you so much. Yeah, over there. Thank you so much for.
Thank you very much, Francisco. I appreciate it. You were a pleasure to work with. I am very much looking forward to my games as well. Like I said, Modern looks great. I've been having a fun time with it on my streams. Even though the companions, a lot of people don't like them, I've been having a good time. I'm excited for my games, and I'm excited to get back in the booth too. I had a ton of fun tonight. It was a pleasure commentating with you, Francisco, and I can't wait to watch more. There'll be more action tomorrow, so if you're hungry for more, it's coming immediately.
All 3 of us are playing in games tomorrow, so definitely check out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. West Coast time, different times all over the world, but it's the same time here. Check us out. We will be back. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night and a great Cinco de Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.